And it shows that a significant and ever-increasing percentage of Americans think that the United States is already a dictatorship. Now, I've been warning about this since, since Reagan, but in a big way since the Patriot Act and all that kind of stuff in the early 2000s. But 24% of people, that's a quarter of Americans in this, or almost a quarter in this YouGov poll, said, quote, the U.S. is a dictatorship. They agreed with that. And if you exclude Republicans or Trump voters, a third of Americans believe that. 35% with independents, it was 30%, so only 7% of Trump voters think we're in a dictatorship, and they're probably quite happy about it. Back in February, now keep in mind, this survey was done last week, so this is June, this is in the summer. Back in February, in the winter, February 3rd through the 6th, they asked a couple thousand people the same question, and at that time, instead of a third of Americans, or a quarter of Americans, 24% of Americans, it was only 18% of Americans thought we were in a dictatorship. So are Americans waking up? Maybe. The way that dictators keep people in line, typically, is they know that a rifle shot is more effective than buckshot, right, or than a machine gun fire. If you can selectively take out just a couple of people in different industries and in different jobs, you can successfully intimidate pretty much everybody else in those industries and jobs. So you arrest a mayor, Ras Baraka, the mayor of New York, New Jersey. You arrest a member of Congress. We've got a member of the House of Representatives, forgive me, I'm not recalling her name, who has been a judge, or a state judge in Wisconsin, as I recall, maybe Minnesota, who was arrested. You have a member of the United States Senate, Alex Padilla, who was wrestled to the ground and handcuffed. You have students at Columbia University. You have Harvard University itself being made an example of. So all you have to do is just, you don't have to spend if Trump went after every university in America, everybody who had protested Netanyahu's policies in Gaza, or if Trump went after everybody who had attacked him, or anybody who was standing up to him, he'd have to spend an enormous amount of time and effort. So instead what he does is you pick these individuals, turn them into high-profile examples. The lawyer, the American lawyer who was flying back from Paris and got stopped at the airport and interrogated for hours and hours. The Australian guy who was stopped at the airport in Los Angeles and was interrogated for hours and then deported back, or sent back to Australia. You pick some people and make examples of them. And so now Donald Trump is doing this with his own party. Thomas Massie, and nobody questions Thomas Massie's right-wing credentials. I mean, this is a guy who every Christmas posts on social media a picture of himself, his wife, and their 4 boys, every single one of them holding an AR-15 in front of a Christmas tree, right? This guy is as hardcore right-wing MAGA as you can get. But he actually has some principles. I realize it's hard to understand, but there are some Republicans who still have principles, and one of the principles that he believes is that you should follow the Constitution, at least when it comes to war powers. And so he tweeted constitutional, what Trump is doing. It might be right, it might be the right thing to do, but he didn't ask Congress for permission. And so Trump now, in response to this, has created a super PAC that is going to be run by Chris LaCivita. Chris LaCivita, of course, is the guy who supervised the swift boating of John Kerry, if my recollection is correct. It's called the Kentucky MAGA. It's a super PAC, and that Chris LaCivita is going to run. He says he will spend whatever it takes to take down Thomas Massie, to primary him, to cause him to lose his seat in Kentucky. And like Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example, had posted a tweet earlier in the week in which she basically said, attacking Iran, bombing Iran would be a stupid move and Trump shouldn't do it. She just deleted the tweet. Why? Because she wants to say it's a good gig, lifetime health insurance, lifetime pension, 200 almost. I think it's 180,000 now. Good pay, lots of perks. You get to go on, trips all around the world, paid for by the taxpayer. So, who wants to blow that, right? So here we are. We've got Donald Trump now trying to make an example of Thomas Massie. And Thomas Massie, by the way, with Congressman Ro Khanna, sponsored this legislation that we all need to be calling our particularly Republican, but all of our members of Congress and saying, please co-sponsor this legislation that will require a war powers resolution before Trump can bomb another country. In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
Hartmann book report today, or book club today, is Cuban Women Confront the Future. It's an interview with Vilma Espin. Vilma Espin was the president of the Federation of Cuban Women since its founding in 1960, and was the chair of the Commission for Social Prevention and president of the Infancy Institute and the International Federation of Democratic Women. And it's a long-form interview, actually, the book. So the first question, what does socialism mean in the lives of a Cuban family, and in particular, Cuban woman? Vilma Espin. For the Cuban family, especially the woman, socialism has meant an enormous improvement to the quality of life and personal development. We should remember that until January 1st, 1959, in our country, hunger, poverty, exploitation, repression, and dependence reigned. The revolution opened up new horizons in the economic, political, and social fields, and amongst its key principles is the defense of equal rights for all human beings. The constant struggle to make ends meet disappeared, and with it the antagonism between people competing for the crumbs that could help them escape the tragic destiny that awaited the majority. Thus the family, the basic cell of society, could develop in a rounded way. Our revolution assured all Cubans the chance to exercise each one of their inalienable rights. Each citizen is assured that food prices are reasonable and that education and medical services are free. The state makes a systemic effort to improve living standards to the extent that it is permitted by the tense battle for development that we wage under blockade and constant imperialist threats. Child care facilities have been created to provide care for the children of tens of thousands of working women from the age of 3 months to 6 years. Services to lighten domestic work have been created. Hundreds of thousands of students have also received free lunch at day school and all their meals at boarding school. Hundreds of thousands of workers also receive their meals at a moderate price in their workplace. More industrial laundries and dry cleaners have been established, and more domestic labor-saving devices are available with preference in acquisition and cheaper prices for workers. Huge resources are dedicated to housing construction in urban and rural zones. We also try to guarantee recreational facilities and spiritual enjoyment to all the population. Of course, the possibilities are exciting, but also what we have achieved to date, considering our limitations, is already vastly superior to what families experienced in the past. Social Security provides an income for those who cannot work. As far as women are concerned, equal rights have certainly changed their position in the family and in society. A woman's participation in social production, because it implies her financial independence, has altered her dependent position in the marriage and allowed a change in her ideas, in the way she looks at life. The laws that govern family relations, such as the Family Code, are based on equality and guarantee the right of members of the family to participate in society, to work, study, and to responsibly educate the children in line with our revolutionary principles. This does not mean that we achieved all that we aspire to. We still have problems of a material nature to resolve, which are directly related to our economic development. There is still the need to eliminate backward ideas that some people hold, men and women, with respect to the role that each person should play within the home, the nature of the socialist family and the relationship between a couple, ideas which work against the full participation of women in the building of a new society. Obviously, the economic security guaranteed by both men and women having access to work, free health care, and education, the obvious satisfaction and confidence in oneself that equal opportunity and the chance to fully develop to the extent of one's talents, intelligence, and aptitude offer to each person, the constant motivation and emotional stability that comes from feeling useful, recognized, and dignified as a human being. Everything that socialism has brought to us undoubtedly fulfills the deepest desires of a family, particularly the woman, who until just a quarter century ago was exploited, oppressed, and marginalized in the family and in society. Question: what is the primary concern in Cuba, work or the human being? What place do women occupy within this concern? Velma Espin: in Cuba, a country that is building socialism, the highest aim is human happiness, based on respect for the fundamental human rights of each person. That includes full social equality to education, health care, work, and professional training, with the chance to employ all of one's faculties to take an active role in society and to help develop that society, to create the material and spiritual basis for a full, harmonious life, where the highest qualities of both men and women flourish. To reach those aspirations requires work, talent, dedication, and willingness from everybody. It requires constant scientific and technological innovation to assure economic and social development. Thus, each member of our society, along with the right to work and all the benefits brought by the revolution, has acquired the duty to help create the economic basis necessary for such advantages. The building of a new society and the fulfillment of new aspirations could not possibly be achieved except on the basis of work and the willingness of the whole population. And the people work with enthusiasm because work is the means for creating wealth.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Work that is.
Hey, it's a brand new week. Happy Monday, top of the day to you. Just getting my smoothie delivered here. Oh, the great American betrayal, what Donald Trump is up to, the war on ordinary people, also the shocking parallels between Neville Chamberlain's 3 meetings with Hitler and Trump's meetings with Putin. This is an amazing story, and we'll get into both of those things in the first hour of the program here. In the second hour of our program, thousands to join the U.S. fight the Trump Takeover protests against Republican redistricting plans, and an update on what's going on in California today, in fact, around this. Also, masked border troops opened fire on a family in their truck after smashing their windows. Where's the outrage? These guys, they showed no badges, they showed no warrant, they had no authority. They smashed the windows of this truck and then they shot at it. In the third hour of our program, Donald Trump just declared his new fight after Putin's warning. He's going after mail-in ballots. I'm telling you, they're doing everything they can to rig the 2026 elections. And Putin and Orban, Trump's mentors, are professionals at this. And Trump wants to ruin the U.S. economy even more and impoverish America by demanding a visa fee of $250 for tourists coming to our country. So we got a lot to talk about today. No guests, just you and me, all 3 hours. To start out, the great American betrayal, Donald Trump's war on ordinary people.
This is my my op-ed today over at HartmannReport.com. Trump represents the most recent and destructive, frankly, iteration of the American right. In fact, in a way, this goes back to the old Confederacy, which was built on right-wing oligarchy and racism. And then, in the 1960s, when the Democratic Party abandoned the Klan and embraced the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, the Republicans said, hey, Southern strategy time. Let's pick up these white races, particularly in the South. And so here we are. Trump, a lifelong racist, he was ideally suited to lead this new Republican movement. He exclusively serves whoever pays the biggest bribes, either in cash, 747s, or votes. And today those people are mostly the big monopolistic businesses, the morbidly rich, foreign dictators, so-called Christian hustlers, and the Republican base of male, white, supremacist racists. Lyndon Johnson famously said of Richard Nixon's Law and Order racism campaign, he said, quote, "If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on, he'll empty your pockets for you. His pockets for you." This has been the Republican Party's mantra for over 50 years. And Trump has turned it into an art form. I mean, while the party's tax and anti-union policies have transferred $50 trillion, now that's what we know of as of 2021. According to Robert Reich, it's now $80 trillion. It's a mind-boggling amount of money. From the middle class into the money bins of the top 1%, or the top 1/100th of 1%, or 1/1000th of 1%, just since Reagan's inauguration. This is why the middle class has gone from being 2/3 of us down to 47% of us. And, Trump-loving white racists continue to vote for him and the Republicans because he's working so hard, they are working so hard to disempower women and black people and push brown people out of the country. Just consider what Trump and his toadies have done just recently. I mean, just in the last 8 months. They fired over 8,000 Social Security workers so that your experience with Social Security will be a living hell. So when they come along, Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan would like to take over Social Security. You say, please. They forced people, starting 2 months after the 2026 midterms, to requalify for Medicaid every 6 months. Most people wouldn't even maintain a driver's license if every 6 months you had to go down to the DMV. They've destroyed unions across America. Most recently, Trump stripped union representation from 400,000 federal workers, leading to a collapse in wages and benefits. They've stripped our public schools of funding, moving those resources to whites only and religious academies. They've left America so awash in guns that we're the only country in the world outside of Gaza where the leading cause of death among children is bullets. They've killed off research into mRNA vaccines that were showing great promise to prevent and even cure cancer because Bob Kennedy is a quack. He's not a doctor, he's a lawyer. They ended free and inexpensive college education, making America the only country in the world with $1.5 trillion in student debt, crushing an entire generation. They've ruined America's soft power around the world by shutting down USAID, leading to the deaths of millions, mostly in Africa, while China and Russia pick up our former allies. They've betrayed our democratic ally Ukraine by withholding new weapons for 8 months now, while sucking up to Putin and openly taking Putin's side. They've embraced autocratic and dictatorial regimes around the world while dissing our democratic allies. They've politicized our military, something George Washington warned loudly against, and every president since Jefferson has done his best to avoid. They've corrupted our courts and prosecutors by appointing unqualified Fox News stars and others, including people credibly accused of sexual assault, taking bribes, and engaging in a coup attempt. They've established new standards for criminality and self-dealing in office. They've corrupted America's reputation as a beacon of democracy for the rest of the world. They've intimidated the media, law firms, and corporate leaders into going along with creeping fascism while demanding from them bribes and tribute to the Trump crime family. They've frozen money appropriated by Congress for green energy projects that would reduce climate change and cancer-causing pollution.
They've pitted Americans against each other while whipping up hysteria around race and religion. They've betrayed Jesus and the founders of the rest of the world's major religions by embracing corrupt preachers and politicizing churches. And they put masked armed thugs on the streets of America to terrorize people and turn our country into a police state. All in the service of the richest among us and the Trump crime family. And to the detriment of average working Americans who are, to paraphrase Lyndon Johnson, emptying their pockets for Trump, the GOP, and the billionaire social media moguls. So what's it going to take for average working people, for average people to stand up to this? Well, one of the things that we know from history is that roughly every 80 years, America experiences a massive crash followed by a severe war and a progressive crash of 1771, followed by the American Revolution, which resolved in 1789. You had the Panic of 1856, followed by the Civil War, 80 years later. 80 years after that, you had the Republican Great Depression, followed by World War II. And this year, it's been exactly 80 years since the end of World War II. And Trump's, incoherent and phony and unconstitutional proclamation of a phony economic emergency in order to impose tariffs is threatening to crash our economy again, just like in the Panic of 1771, just like in the Panic of 1856, just like in the Republican Great Depression of 1929. ICE raids have led to produce rotting in our fields, giving us a 38% increase in the price of vegetables at the wholesale level this month, or last month. I mean, combine the very real probability that he's driving us into a recession, maybe even a depression, with his dangerous anti-democratic foreign policy, which seems to be rooted in just, giving whichever country gives him the biggest bribes, whether it's cash or a real estate development or a 747 or whatever, plus whatever Vladimir Putin demands of him. All this could very easily lead to a 1930s, 1940s crash and war kind of scenario. I mean, China takes Taiwan, Putin takes Ukraine, India goes to war with Pakistan, Israel attacks Iran, Trump dithers and impotently threatens. And here we are in a major crisis. Is that what it's going to take to wake up the average voter? Like it did in the 1940s? Or will Trump, Putin, and Orban finally succeed in taking America down the Russia-Hungary road from oligarchy to outright authoritarian fascism before the 2028 presidential election? To the extent that we can still speak out, that we can still participate in our political systems, that we're willing to fight for a return to the egalitarian democracy of the New Deal and the Great Society, our future is still largely in our own hands. Get out there, get active, tag, we're it.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
16 minutes past the hour as European leaders make their way to the White House for their meeting with Mr. Zelensky and Mr. Trump. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Brian in Big Pine, California. Hey, Brian, what's on your mind today? Brian? Brian going once, going twice. Omar in Herndon, Virginia. Hey, Omar, what's on your mind today? Omar? Two people not listening?
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Hey, Omar. Yeah, you're on the air.
All right, Tom. Thank you so much. I couldn't hear you calling. That's why. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Tom, yes, much better. I can hear you now. Yep,
right.
Yep. On the hybrid one. Okay, I got you.
So
Tom, real quick. In terms of, before I get to my topic, what grade do you give the press corps? Have they been forced just to fall in line? Because I'm not getting a lot of resistance with Trump with regard to this press corps. Are they scared? Are they? I mean, do we still have a valuable press corps?
The Associated Press is still not part of the D.C. press corps because they're still refusing to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America.
And that, I think, and then regularly Donald Trump will call reporters nasty if they're women, call them stupid if they're black, or just generally attack them if they ask him hard questions. So I think that to a large extent, he's cowed them. You know, they want to have access. They want to retain their access. And they want to retain in his good graces. I mean, you know, he's the most powerful man in the world. It's not, it's kind of human nature to shrink when some person like that attacks you, particularly when you know that he's got, you know, thousands of people behind him who would gladly, you know, dox you, who have come to people's, you know, they came to a judge's home and shot her son dead and shot her husband in the head. They you know, a guy with a hammer came after Nancy Pelosi's husband. I mean, you know, it can be very intimidating, Omar. I think they're afraid.
Yeah, and they're afraid. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. But in regard to my main point, Tom, I think we're really at a turning point right now where the globe is going to be basically divided into to regions, you know, and I was very surprised to find out from Al Jazeera that Putin requested the meeting and he requested the location.
That's right.
You know, the original location. Yeah, that, to me, like, he dictated basically where they're going to meet, when they're going to meet.
This was a huge victory for him domestically, because for 2 weeks prior to this meeting, the Russian media had been doing this story, which was, you know, I've seen reported in the American press, but not in any of the mainstream media. It was like Daily Beast reported it or something, that the Russian media has been talking about how, and Putin himself said, the 1867 sale of Alaska to the United States is illegal, or was illegal. And therefore, Alaska still belongs to Russia. So by going to Alaska, Putin was basically saying to his Russian peeps, hey, after we take Ukraine, Alaska's next.
That makes sense.
Which plays very well
you know,
in Russia.
And you never know. I mean, because if we got Trump, and I really coming to the conclusion that Trump is not going to leave the White House. I think the 2028, and I don't see any preparedness in terms of really countering that if he decided to stay. And I think it's very troubling.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, thank you, Omar. Good to hear from you. 20 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls in 1 minute. Stay with us. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Did you know that the ancient Roman Republic, which for 480 years was actually a democratic republic before Julius Caesar kind of ended the democracy phase and replaced it with the autocracy phase, that they were brought down by a very small group of very rich people. The richest man in ancient Rome was Marcus Licinius Crassus. He was the richest guy, the billionaire of Rome. And he frankly hated the Roman free bread for all welfare system. It was being paid for with his tax dollars, after all. So him and Pompey the Great and a few other rich guys got together, and they basically crashed Rome. They turned it into an oligarchy and then into a tyranny. And the parallels to what Trump is doing right now are absolutely shocking. There's an article about it over at HartmannReport.com titled "American Caesar: Trump's Path to Power Mirrors Rome's Darkest Days." Check it out.
Once we dreamed of freedom, once we dreamed of light, but the shadows grew taller in the silence of the night. He came with a promise, I'll make you great again, but he sold out the people for the gold of wicked men. This is the great American betrayal, where the rich grow fat and the hungry wait. justice into a scheme. Oh, we're bleeding red, white, and pale in the great American betrayal. He crowned the liars, raised the thieves, built his empire on broken knees. Our children buried by guns in the street while he dines with tyrants and calls it peace. This is the great American betrayal, where the prophets of greed sing gospel tales. He stole from the poor, gave the crown to the strong, and told the faithful to sing along. Oh, freedom's ghost is up for sale in the great American betrayal. From the fields of the South to the rusted mills, he promised the cure but delivered the pills. An empire of ashes, a kingdom of lies. The people keep paying as democracy dies. This is the great American betrayal, a nation crucified on a golden nail. But the people will rise, we've been here before. From the ashes we'll march, we'll fight, we'll roar. The truth will break the iron veil and end this great American betrayal.
25 minutes past the hour.
Tag we're it.
Yeah, tag we're at. Hey, bring it back up.
To heal the wounds, to mend the scars. The dream's not dead, though the night is long. If we hold the truth, we'll right the wrong.
There you go. So Neville Chamberlain met 3 times with Adolf Hitler back in 1938. And September 15th was the main meeting in Berchtesgaden, Hitler's summer place, his Mar-a-Lago. And it's interesting, Czechoslovakia had created what they called a fortress belt, where they could defend themselves against the Nazis, the Sudetenland. And Ukraine has done the same thing in the towns of Slovansk, Kramatorsk, Dushkarivka, Potrava, Mirodad, and another town I can't pronounce. It's not just trenches, it's a deep layered defense with bunkers, anti-tank ditches, minefields, very, very hard for the Russians to take. That area in the Sudetenland was what Hitler demanded of Czechoslovakia, and basically Neville Chamberlain gave to him. And this area in Ukraine, which Russia has not yet conquered, is what Putin is now demanding of Trump, and Trump is essentially saying he wants to give to Putin the most heavily fortified area along the front. I'll give you more details in just a minute.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's an amazing story. Stick around. We'll be right back, and I'll pick up your calls. Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is The Hidden History of American Healthcare,
Why Sickness Bankrupts You and Makes Others Insanely Rich by me. I wrote this book. This is from the introduction, the title, How a Single-Payer Healthcare Systems Help Stop COVID-19. Healthcare systems can be national security systems. Just ask anyone from Taiwan. From January 20th, 2020, the United States, or on January 20, 2020, the United States recorded its first known case of COVID-19 infection. The following day, Taiwan got their first one, too. By the end of April, over 1 million Americans were infected with the virus. But Taiwan had recorded only 388 infections, and their last case of local transmission was on April 12th. A few had arrived on aircraft from other countries. All were contained by quarantine. As of this writing in September 2020, there hadn't been a single new case or a single death in Taiwan since April. The economy never shut down, and as of this writing, was projected to have grown nearly 2% in 2020. Business, restaurants, theaters, and sports events were all open. Life was back to normal, albeit a mask-wearing normal. And it was made possible by their national single-payer healthcare system and their citizens' willingness to do their bit for the collective good. Back in the 1980s, Taiwan was on the edge of moving toward a democracy after a military coup in the 1960s. And about 40% of Taiwanese families did not have health insurance. If somebody in a family got sick, the cost of care often wiped out that family, and demands for reform were loud across the nation. Yue Reinhardt was a German-born healthcare economist married to a Taiwanese. He attended a conference on healthcare in Taipei in 1989. His presentation impressed representatives of the government in attendance, and while he was still in town for the conference, they asked him for his best suggestion for a national healthcare system. He and his wife went back to their hotel and discussed the issue in depth, finally deciding that a single-payer national system would be the most cost-effective, efficient, and comprehensive program possible. He shared his thoughts with the government representatives, and the next day he left Taiwan to go back to Princeton, where he was an economic professor. 6 months later, though, a representative of Taiwan's government called him to say that they were going to take up his suggestion and asked him to help craft their healthcare program. He enthusiastically agreed, and by 1995, Taiwan had instituted one of the world's best single-payer healthcare systems. Today, everybody in Taiwan is fully covered for doctor and hospital services. Everybody has a driver's license-like healthcare card which accesses their entire medical history. They can book a doctor's appointment on any computer terminal in the country, and the entire cost of the system is a bit more than 6% of Taiwan's GDP. For comparison, in the United States, healthcare consumes 24% of our GDP. Because there is no insurance company intermediaries sucking profits off the system in Taiwan. When COVID-19 hit, Taiwan chose not to use the blunt force technique of shutting down their economy and locking people in. Instead, they took on the coronavirus with an aggressive nationwide test and contact trace program tied into the National Health Service database. Every infected person was identified and put into a comfortable quarantine, and every person he or she had come into contact with, even very marginal contacts, were also tested and their contacts traced. By April, just a bit more than 2 months after the first case surfaced, the country had the coronavirus isolated and completely under control. By quarantining inbound visitors to the nation island of 23 million, they were able, as of this writing, to keep it that way. Maintaining public health is one of the most important functions of any nation's healthcare system. Because America's is so fragmented, it's inconceivable that our nation could respond to an epidemic, a pandemic, or another public health disaster with the speed and elegance of Taiwan, or any of the world's other nations with single-payer Medicare for all types of systems. It's like Stockholm Syndrome, a friend who's a psychotherapist said, describing the way that Americans have clung for more than 5 generations to a for-profit health insurance system, while the rest of the world figured out how to provide health care to all their citizens at a much lower price. People know it and have become familiar with it, she added. They just can't imagine anything else. It's probably the largest con job ever perpetrated on the American people, one that has cost trillions of dollars and millions of lives. It's been going on since the 1940s. If it were a scientific experiment, it would have been shut down by the ethics review panels generations ago. This experiment in providing health care via a for-profit insurance system has led to the deaths of more Americans than we lost in World War II. Every year, over 500,000 Americans go bankrupt, often losing everything they've worked their entire lives for because somebody in their family got sick. That's 500,000 families a year, every year, for the past few decades. And the coronavirus, of course, has only made things worse. Perhaps most galling, this massive ripoff is costing our entire nation and each of us individually a fortune. Insurance premiums right now make up 22% of all taxable payroll, well above what the cost of Medicare for all would be at around 14% when first put into place, dropping down to around 10% within a few years as previously uninsured people get their health needs up to date. As the health insurance, drug, and hospital parasites push their suckers deeper and deeper into our body politic, spending on health care by Americans went up 25% between 2000 and 2014. The book, The Hidden History of American Health Care by Thom Hartmann. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out.
And he didn't just break it, he blew it apart. Like Chernobyl in a business suit, no conscience, no heart. Poisoned the truth, made cruelty a trend. Taught the GOP that empathy's pretend. He caged up children and laughed at their cries. Called Nazis fine people and swallowed his lies. Tore up the map, set fire to the ground, and danced with the devil as the world spun around. He's a black hole in a red hat, a gravity well of hate, spray tan and sulfur, marching toward our fate. He didn't just bring darkness.
Welcome back. 35 minutes past the hour. So Donald Trump says that he's willing, and he's getting some backlash from this, by the way. He's willing to give Putin access to Alaska's natural resources. Keep in mind, you know, Putin was saying just 2 weeks ago that the 1867 sale of Alaska to the United States by Russia was illegal, and that Alaska is still Russia's. And he's also offering Ukraine's rare earth minerals to Putin in exchange for some sort of peace deal that Donald Trump thinks is going to win him a Nobel Prize. If he thinks the Nobel Committee in Norway is ever going to give him a Nobel Prize for anything, he's badly deluded. Here's Trump posting over on his Nazi-infested social media site. He says, President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to. Yeah, just surrender. Right? Just give Putin your country. He says, remember how it started. Well, how did it start? It started with Russia invading Ukraine. Trump apparently has a different understanding of how it started. He says, no getting back Obama given Crimea 12 years ago without a shot being fired. No going into NATO by Ukraine. In other words, he's just openly, in all caps, taking Putin's positions. And now you've got Russian tanks driving into Ukraine to attack cities and kill civilians, which is what Putin has been doing every single day. The Ukrainians have been very careful only to attack military targets. The Russians kill civilians every day. And now they've got a tank flying a U.S. flag, now that Donald Trump has basically said to Russia, yeah, whatever you want, Vlad, I'll just give it to you. Don't worry. I know you've got those Epstein tapes. We got to keep that stuff under wraps, right? What do you think it is? Do you think it's the Epstein tapes? This is the head of the Center for the Study of the Occupation, Peter Andrushenko. He says, The Russians have already declared the United States an ally and are storming the city in M113 armored personnel carriers with Russian and American flags. This is the logical conclusion to all of Trump's absurdity, and all of this is on the official propaganda channel of Russia Today. There are no words. Yeah, well, I think there are words. Meanwhile, our brilliant ambassadorial staff that went with Donald Trump to Alaska, none of them professional ambassadors apparently, left behind a whole bunch of papers about their meetings, including one talking about a luncheon in honor of His Excellency Vladimir Putin. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. So what's on your mind today? David in Fort St. John, British Columbia, Canada. Hey, David, what's up?
Hello, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
My name's David Eby. I live in British Columbia. Donald Trump wrecked my business. Hello?
Donald Trump, what your business?
He wrecked my business. His tariff wrecked my business. But lucky for me, I still have my support of my beautiful wife, Theresa Tam. Although I think Doug Ford has been messing with her.
Yeah. David, nice try. Tyrone in Harlem, New York. Hey, Tyrone, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, if you would get these clowns trying
Tyrone,
to get
you're on the air.
Thank you. The issues that I have is the fact that I believe that if the Democratic Party wins the House, the Senate, the presidency, they're putting us in charge of a ship with a bunch of holes in it, and then they will blame the Democratic Party for the ship sinking because they are doing the most damage to this country. They just found secret information about the meeting that Trump was having with Putin in the hotel copy machine, the information that was supposed to be secret. Our information is floating all over. We got this guy in charge of the healthcare, canceling stuff with the mRNA, and if the Democratic Party ever become the power that's in charge of what's going on in this country, all they're going to be is blamed for the problems that Donald Trump set us up to face. So I don't know if we're going to be able to follow the rules as Democratic Party, the rules and the Constitution in this country legally, and still accomplish getting this country back on track.
So what's the alternative?
How that happened? The alternative, we got to break rules, like Gavin Newsom said. Listen, we getting in the ring with our hands tied behind our back and think.
Oh, hey, we don't have to break the rules, Tyrone. We just have to follow the new rules that the Supreme Court, created. They said, hey, you can suppress the vote you want if you want. You can gerrymander if you want. That was the Russo case. The suppress the vote was the. I'm forgetting the. Anyhow, the John Roberts has just legalized all this stuff. Shelby County.
We got, what is the League of Women's Voters that's going against Gavin Newsom for wanting to change the rules to have the voters voting to be able to change.
There's some people complaining about it, but I'm not taking them seriously. I'm loving this Gavin Newsom, punking Trump and him with tweets that look just like Trump's, all caps, baby talk. I think it's hysterical. But excellent point, Tyrone. I agree with you. We need to fight fire with fire.
Yeah, exactly. That's my concern. Are we going to try to hold on to this system that made sure rich, powerful men stay rich and powerful men, and everybody else have to scrape for the scraps?
There you go.
We're going to try to make everything more equal for more of the people in this country as opposed to the small.
I'm with you. We need to bring back the New Deal and the Great Society, frankly, which Project 2025 is really all about basically taking every aspect of the New Deal and Great Society and deconstructing them, tearing them apart. Spot on. Tyrone, thank you. Jennifer in Portland. Hey, Jennifer, what's up?
Hey, thanks, Tom, for taking my call.
Sure.
I just wrote to Tina Kotek here in Oregon asking her to gerrymander our state. I don't know how many we can eke out, but if we can get all the blue state listeners to call their governors and say, look, we need to do this now because this is our last chance to say democracy.
Yeah. I agree. Don't we just have, isn't there only one Republican congressperson from Oregon?
Yes, but everyone counts.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
I'm not sure.
I mean, I know that we're in a safe place, but every blue state can do this, except for New York because of that silly rule or whatever they have to follow for the primary.
Yeah.
But every it's the only way, Tom. We're at the end. We're at the wall, and I think contacting Bezos' ex-wife to fund those 1,000 progressive radio stations in the heartland, that be done.
Yeah.
There was a woman on TikTok yesterday who just wrote a whole, she just did this whole video of herself saying that she took this fact-checking tutorial and she, was believing all the Republican lies, and, she has come around. And we wouldn't be having that if we had progressive radio in the heartland.
I agree. I mean, that was part of the campaign in the 1980s to flip. A lot of those states were blue states. Iowa used to be a blue state, Montana was a blue state at one time. I mean, a lot of these states were blue states, and it was right-wing hate radio that flipped them all. Jennifer, I got to run, but thanks for the call. It's spot on. Cece in Northbrook, Illinois. Hey, Cece, what's up?
Well, Tom, thanks for taking my call also,
sure.
Tom.
Of course.
And giving us access to such a great show. You give me sanity. I watch this show because I don't I don't go to church. I'm retired. So I have to tune into this station to kind of get some sanity. Okay. Know that people out there like you, and so here's my thing to you, my question to you. And it's just an open-minded intellectual question. Because I used to be very active in the church, and I usually went to interracial, mixed churches. Mm-hmm. When I became an adult, I came out of a black church, but when I became an adult, I made it my mission to go to churches that are mixed. Mm-hmm. And, for obvious reasons. Love, and Christianity. But the problem, and I know bigotry in the church. I've heard all those things that we're seeing now, that some people shouldn't vote. I heard that in the church from a brother from Texas. I heard about breaking down the Department of Education from a white guy in church. But these are just bigots. They're not. Well, race is when you act upon your bigotry, mm-hmm. And you hurt somebody, to me. Mm-hmm. You can have different philosophies. So this is what I want to ask you, because I know you revised your prejudiced white people number from 1/4 to 2/3.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because I think that's more accurate from my experience.
Yeah.
But I want you to, in your mind, because I can't wrap my head around, I don't think this is racism. He still has this strong white evangelical support, even after the Epstein thing, which I missed. Broken clock is right at least twice a day to MAGA. Get them their just due on this one. I totally missed that. I did not know Trump was that deep into little girls, that young, for so long. Now, he's so old now. He, get that thing up, but he will. Whatever. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm more focused on, can you explain to me how this contortion outside of racism, this white evangelical support for this man at this point? I'm struggling. What's your philosophy on, aside from racism? Is it just ignorance, maybe?
No, I don't think so. I think it's tied into white Christian supremacy, this idea that America was a Christian nation, that it was created by Christian people, which, by the way, is not true. Thomas Jefferson was not a Christian. George Washington was not a Christian. Thomas Paine was not a Christian. Ben Franklin was not a Christian. They had all repudiated Christianity, or at least in the case of Washington, gone out of their way to be silent about it. There were a few Christians. James Madison, James Monroe, there were a couple. But, and a couple of fanatics. Patrick Henry was a fanatic Christian. He was also the largest slaveholder in the state of Virginia. But that whole idea, that whole white Christian supremacist, that America should be run by Christians along Christian principles, the subtext to that is that the only true Christians are the chosen people, which is not Jews, it's white people. And so
I've heard that.
Yeah, so Christian.
They base it on,
Christian
I can tell you
nationalism
they-
and racism go hand in hand.
They base it on the scripture about being. There's a scripture that they always
The
use.
mark of
about
Cain.
No, this is in the New Testament. It's about you were born beforehand.
Oh yeah,
to be,
yeah. Your fate was determined. Yeah, you're before the beginning of time. Yeah, there's that. But the mark of Cain is the other one. You know that the mark of Cain was blackness.
Russian people. And he quotes Trump as saying, I was just in Russia. The girls have no morals. You got to get out there.
Interesting.
And it's pretty obvious that these girls were prostitutes. For sure they were prostitutes working for the KGB. And Donald, with their encouragement, he made a total pig of himself. They went out of their way to get the good video footage.
Right, and those hotels in Moscow are all equipped with video cameras inside.
Yeah, in 2013, I think it was the 2013, the next trip there, and he had a whole staff with him. He wasn't alone, and he was telling them that he's telling the staff that he's warning them, be careful, because the hotel rooms were full of hidden cameras, and they were hidden in places you wouldn't believe the places they hide these cameras.
Yeah.
Well, how did Trump know that unless somebody showed him the photos of his earlier trip to Moscow?
Oh, that's an interesting theory. Yeah.
2013.
Yeah. When you said Howard Stern, I thought he was talking about going after his daughter. Excuse me. Pardon me.
I'm sneezing here. Brian, thanks for the call. We'll be right back. 52 minutes past the hour.
Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So a lot of people are wondering, why is it in America that we can't have nice things? Why don't we have, the same things every other democracy has? Every other democracy in the world has a national health care system of some form, and everybody is covered. We don't. We've got 27 million uninsured people and over 100 million underinsured people. Why is that? Why is it that every other country in the world offers college education very inexpensively, if not for free, and for here you go to debt? Why is it that we've got our public schools crumbling and other countries are doing well? Why is it that we've got Medicare being taken apart by this Medicare Advantage scam and nobody will do anything about it? Well, it turns out the reason why it boils down to one thing, one Supreme Court decision, Citizens United, legalizing the bribery of our politicians. There's a whole rant about this over at HartmannReport.com. I think you're going to find it very, very useful. Check it out.
Once upon a time, a vote was meant to stand, a voice for every worker, not just the wealthy hand. But power found a loophole, bought the system out. Now money drowns the voices, now greed decides the route.
Welcome back, 54 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Marilyn in Chicago. Hey, Marilyn, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Love your show just so much. Love everything you say.
Thank you.
The thing that's just bothering me right now is it seems like 90% of the press is helping Donald Trump. I don't understand why the White House press, nobody confronts him and says, you went to 62 judges. They all said the election was not stolen. When you asked for recounts, he didn't win one of those. Yet none of them, including people in the Democratic Party, don't ever confront him on that and say, why do you keep repeating that when you went to 62 judges? Nobody says that. And, when he says that, I believe Vladimir Putin, that he didn't help me at all, with the election. Again, where's Robert Mueller? Why doesn't he come out and defend his report? Yeah. I just don't understand why our side is so weak. And he speaks so highly of Putin. I mean, Alexei Navalny, I just think that man is an incredible man. And he put him in jail a couple times at least for years. To kill him. And then he ends up being dead.
Yeah.
And then he kills him. And that's okay with Donald Trump because, of course, he'd love to put his enemies in prison and kill them.
Yep. Yeah, the question in my mind is does Putin own Trump because he's offering him money or, Moscow's Trump Tower? Does he own Trump because he's got video of Trump with underage girls? Or does he own Trump because Trump wants to be Putin when he grows up?
Right.
Or all three?
All of those. I think all of the above.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But I wish the press would I want to know what he would respond to 62 judges. And that included, conservative judges, people. I don't understand. How can you go to that many judges and not one said that there was any fraud?
Yeah.
So I just wish they would be better at saying, and then even when he gives a press conference, they just move on and ask another question instead of confronting him with the lie he just said.
I know. He has gotten away with lies his whole entire life. He's so good at it. And it's basically, the core of his political strategy is just to tell lies and not be challenged.
Yes.
And if you tell the lie often enough, it becomes true.
Right. And our press is doing it.
Yep. I got to run, Marilyn. Thank you for the call. We'll be back on the other side of the break. Thousands are joining the Fight the Trump Takeover protests against Republican redistricting. And Gavin Newsom is fighting back big time. I'll tell you all about that in just a moment. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is A History of the World in 6 Plagues, How Contagion, Class, and Captivity Shaped Us from Cholera to COVID-19. Book was published in March of this year. This is from the prologue. I rarely enjoy, and it's by Edna Bonhomme, Bonhomme. I believe that's how it's pronounced. She writes, I rarely enjoy an entire night of rest without interruption. I fixate on the whorls of brass on a light fixture or a stray fly. Like many insomniacs, my angst has an origin story. It began when I was a child and is bound in my memories like a cankerous sore. In the summer of 1988, after nearly a week of high temperatures and perennial diarrhea, my parents, both in their early 20s, took me in desperation to Jackson Memorial Hospital, the same public infirmary in Miami where my mother would later work as a janitor. After a series of tests, I was diagnosed with typhoid fever. I spent a month there at 4 years old, lonely and scared, curled up small in a hospital bed that felt huge. The stale air wafted through my nose while the EKG machine rattled through the night. I heard the buzzing of the fluorescent lights as the stiffness of the bed pressed up against my body. Unable to swallow without feeling nauseous, I could barely eat. According to my aunts and parents, I nearly died. Hyperbole is a familiar register for my elders, their dramatic tales making for entertaining family gatherings. But for once, their alarm at my sluggishness and flushed skin made sense. I was seriously ill. Unmoored from myself with a deep headache, my throat burned and my cough echoed throughout the room. When my relatives visited me, I skulked along the ward corridors, dragging my tiny legs slowly from the bedroom into the playroom. But the worst part was that when the nurses arrived with my favorite fruit, mango, I barely touched the plate. Instead, I glared at them with repulsion and at every other nutrient with irritation as I crumbled into a state of fatigue. What had started as a fever turned into a curse that my miniature body, mind, and spirit could no longer bear. My hospitalization stretched on primarily to get me to a place of health, but also to ensure that I could not infect others. I lost weight. As each day turned into night, I heard the sounds of the nurses as they moved around, shaken. My decline, my high temperature, and eventually my progress were left to the staff. Most of the time, they confined me to the bed in the room, unable to move as I pleased or join the games of my friends who I could see in the playground in my mind's eye. In my confinement, I felt like I was outside of myself. This month of hospitalization has had a life of its own in the years afterward. In the early hours of the morning, as I am laying in bed, the early memories of captivity returns. I am reminded of the waves of tears that flowed down my retina when my parents would leave and the sense of being trapped. When one is bedridden with a life-threatening disease or a chronic illness, one might find oneself obsessed with death. I was too young to understand the cause or nature of my condition, but had a sense that death was something foreboding, a darkness hanging over me. Restless, I craved climbing the coconut tree in our backyard and searching for ladybugs and my cousins. My fear was driven by the conviction that I would not wake up the next time I closed my eyes. More than my parents' embraces and promises of safety muttered in Creole, or the icy ball of the nurse's thermometer, the hospital bed was the most consistent thing I felt. The details of this period are less significant than the impact it created, how 3 decades later I feel irrevocably out of place when entering a hospital. I absorbed the hushed voices, the pastel-colored walls, and the Spartan hospital gowns. I could hear the doctors' voices, but could not understand what they were saying.
The syllables rattled through the air, meaningless sounds. Barely able to articulate my thoughts in either Creole or English, I was a callow girl lost in a room of tubes and bright lights, obsessed with my plans to escape. I couldn't see past my hospital bedroom, my mom, in the sense that my restraint was my punishment for pushing a friend off the slide, as I recall doing in my local playground shortly before I was taken ill. All I could do was count the number of times my parents came per day or the moments the nurses came to feed me. I had no control over anything, what I ate, where I went, when I moved. Even when I imagined playing with my friends at the beach or pictured the sugarcane stalks in our backyard, my thoughts were dimmed by the atmosphere. When others entered the room, even my family, I felt they were surveying me, taking the measure of the bed, the equipment, and my body. Now I find that a bed, even when lying next to a friend or lover, is also a place of unease. Will they disappear in the middle of the night once I'm asleep, or will their presence comfort me? For months after my infection with typhoid fever, I felt the profound injustice of being forced indoors and restrained, unable to feel the humidity, the humid, heavy Miami wind blowing on my face, or watch the luxury sailboats with sunburned passengers splash across the calm water of Biscayne Bay. I learned how to sit still with my thoughts. Even today, hospitals agitate me, not because of their stiff chairs or drab walls or even their bland art, but because of my dread. Medical institutions remind me of my most profound envy for people who can sleep a whole night without interruption or harm. In the late 19th century, typhoid fever was one of the most prevalent diseases in America. When Mary Mallon, popularly known as Typhoid Mary, was identified as the asymptomatic carrier of the disease, physicians believed she had infected families in New York City for whom she cooked. The book is A History of the World in 6 Plagues.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome to the second hour of the program. This is just an amazing quote. This is from the World Affairs editor at The Independent, the British newspaper. Sam Kiley is his name. He writes, Trump isn't fighting for peace in Ukraine. He's managing Russia's victory. And Europe is worried. No higher delegation of European leaders has ever been assembled for a mission of such extraordinary importance. Talks with an American president who now wholly represents the interests of Russia. Donald Trump has represented Russia's strategic interests against Ukraine, against Europe, and arguably against his own country, the United States, consistently since his inauguration this year. Excuse me. He will be speaking the Kremlin's mind when he meets President Zelensky in the Oval Office, and he will be rehearsing Putin's talking points when he meets the assembled European leaders later. Yeah, you think? It's mind-boggling. Meanwhile, California has released a redistricting map as Gavin Newsom is engaging in just some master-level trolling of Donald Trump, posting all caps tweets and thank you for your attention to this matter, and calling Trump tiny hands, and I mean it's like, I can't get enough of it. And I think Democrats all across the country are going, yeah, give us more. But anyhow, California Democrats last Friday released their redistricting proposal. And what it does is it basically replaces Republican Congressman Doug LaMalfa, Kevin Kiley, Ken Calvert, and Darrell Issa, and Adam Gray as a Democratic representative. His district becomes solidly more Democratic. So basically that's 4 Republicans gone and a 5th seat now held by a Democrat, but it goes back and forth, becoming safely Democratic. And this, of course, is going to have to go before the voters in November. And that's going to be interesting. There's going to be, of course, a lot of money spent saying, no, don't do it. I think this is
an important starting point. And there's also these Republican protests. This Stop the Takeover. This is thousands join U.S. fight the Trump tests against Republican redistricting. In Texas and in 34 other states on Saturday, there were major protests against Republican election rigging efforts. And, there was a piece in the New York Times over the weekend suggesting that there are more red states that could engage in gerrymandering, giving Congress even more Republican legislators than there are blue states that can do it. And the reason why is because it takes a trifecta to make this happen. You have to have the House, the Senate, and the governorship, all three positions held, and sometimes the Supreme Court as well, held in a state. And there's, my recollection is there's 22 or 24 Republican states who meet that criteria and only 13 Democratic states. Now, fact check me on that. I'm doing it from memory. I read the article, on Saturday. But my recollection is those were the numbers. If not, it's something very close to that. So if this turns into an all-out redistricting war, it could blow up on the Democrats, but on the one hand. On the other hand, if it's limited to Texas and California, Texas gains 5 seats, California gets rid of 5 seats, it might be a wash. So, and then on top of that, of course, every time you have a midterm election, generally speaking, particularly when things aren't going all that well, which is definitely the case right now, the party in power loses control of the House and sometimes the Senate as well. And I think the odds, even with the redistricting, even with the rigging, even with the purges, everything that the Republicans are doing to try to fix the elections in 2026, next November's elections, I don't think any of it's going to work. But we'll see. We'll see. Meanwhile, this is just a mind-boggling story. And this is, Trump has taken over D.C., but nationwide now he's got what is going to be soon the largest police force in the world. They do not show identification. They do not name their names. They do not even identify the agency they work for. They wear masks. How do you know that these people are not, rapists? There have been 4 cases now that I know of, that I've read about, of people either robbing or raping. Most of them were rape. 3 of the 4 were rapes, where men went to areas where there were undocumented people, found attractive young women who were undocumented, told them that they were ICE, had what looked like ICE ID. You can buy this stuff on Amazon, and then raped them. How do you know? So that was the problem with this family in San Bernardino, California. And we don't know much about this family. We don't know if they are undocumented or if they are U.S. citizens. I'm guessing they're U.S. citizens, given how they fought back. But anyhow, they're in this truck, pickup truck, and NBC Los Angeles reports this. Agents surrounded the family's truck and demanded the people get out. And Dad was driving the truck, and he said, "Who are you? Show me some identification. Show me some legal basis for why I should get out of this vehicle." And they said, "No, we're not going to show you anything. Get the hell out of the vehicle." And he's like, "No, I'm not going to do it." So they pulled out their sticks or their batons, and they started smashing the windows of his truck. So he steps on the gas and drives away, and they start shooting at his truck. He's got kids in his truck. These are these ICE thugs, these people that, you don't have to have a college degree. By the way, I lived in Germany for 1.5 years. You've got to have a college degree just to be a cop in Germany. And that's true of most of the developed world. But ICE, you could be a high school dropout as far as I can tell. In fact, you could be a January 6th insurrectionist and get a job with ICE. So anyhow, the father identified himself as Francisco. He says the agent refused to identify themselves. They presented no warrants. He said, I had to protect my life and my family. My truck was shot 3 times. And according to KTLA, federal agents surrounded the family's house later that afternoon and demanded that the father come out so he could be arrested. He refused, and agents eventually departed from the neighborhood without detaining him. I guarantee you they will be back. These people do not take defeat easily. So, it's crazy stuff. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., we've got the Gestapo all over the place. In this case, it being the National Guard and ICE. And, Louise and I lived in D.C. for 7 years. And, we went out to dinner a fair amount of the time. There's just an incredible restaurant scene in D.C. The best restaurants, Haleo, Zatinia, I'm forgetting the names of some of the others, are owned by Chef Jose Andres, the guy who started the World Kitchen that's been feeding people in Gaza. Well, actually, 5 or 6 of his people were murdered by the Israeli troops, even though they were clearly identified as aid workers. Israeli troops have now killed more journalists in Gaza than any other country in the world in any other conflict in history on a kind of per capita basis. It's just this slaughter that's going on in Gaza is just mind-boggling. But anyhow, back to Washington, D.C. So Jose Andres, he's got a bunch of restaurants, but the easy way to look at this is with Open Table. And we used to use Open Table all the time because it's an app that lets you make restaurant reservations, basically. It's very simple and straightforward. And they compile statistics. And what's happening is that people don't want to go out because the National Guard they're running these roadblocks, apparently looking for what? Criminals? Like criminals are driving around in their cars? I mean, seriously? By the way, they're not going into high crime neighborhoods, it appears, because, hey, you might actually have to do something there. But seating on according to reservation numbers started to drop substantially, dropping 16% on Tuesday. On Wednesday, they fell 31%. These are reservations made by Open Table. And then they're down 20% on Saturday. So basically what's happening is, this is what Chris Murphy said, the senator from Connecticut, on Sunday. He said, what's happening here in D.C. is just a stunt. Donald Trump didn't like the fact that the walls were closing in on him, that his own base was questioning why he wouldn't release the Epstein files, why he was protecting very powerful people. And so he's doing this as a way of distracting us all. Which brings us back to the original question. How we know that Donald Trump is frequently in the Epstein files. We know that Donald Trump was characterized by Jeffrey Epstein as, quote, his best friend for a decade. We know that Donald Trump and Epstein had a contest, or at least we believe that they had a contest about who could sleep with Princess Diana first after she divorced now King Charles, then Prince Charles. We have heard reports that Jeffrey Epstein bragged that he had slept with Melania before Donald Trump had. So, and Melania and Trump and Epstein and Maxwell were photographed together on multiple occasions. They were apparently very, very tight, good friends. So, was Trump involved in raping underage girls? We don't know. But if he wasn't, why would he not release the files to prove that? I mean, he's acting like somebody who's really guilty. So what's going on here? There was a time when only QAnon wanted to know the answer to that question, but now I think it's all of America. It's incredible. It's 18 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with your calls on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's the place where smart people get their news. We'll be right back with your thoughts. And welcome back. Rich in San Bernardino, California. Hey, Rich, what's on your mind today?
Well, I was wondering if Trump ever heard of a guy named Ceausescu.
Ceausescu?
Yeah.
The former dictator of Romania, are you talking about?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he kind of went down hard because one time he had everybody come out to, he closed people's businesses to hear him speak in the town square.
Mm-hmm.
And they finally had it. They tore him apart.
Yeah, they did. Him and his wife, too.
His 2 kids were executed also.
Yeah, he was running these god-awful orphanages, too, where the children were literally never touched. Just horror stories because they had outlawed abortion. So there were all these unwanted babies.
Yeah.
So what's the point about Ceausescu, Nicolae Ceausescu?
He should be giving the information to Donald Trump. Maybe he'll think going, oh, my goodness, they could do this to me?
Oh, when people turn against the dictator?
Yep.
I don't think it's gotten that bad, but and I doubt that the people would ever tear Donald Trump apart the way they did Ceausescu. But yeah, dictator. The larger story probably is that life tends not to turn out well for dictators. Just ask the relatives of Mr. Mussolini or Mr. Hitler. it's like his primary role models.
I understand his kids and his grandkids are in this country under a different name.
Ceausescu's?
Of Hitler. No, Hitler.
Oh, Hitler's. Huh. Interesting. I wonder if they've gone back to Schicklgruber. Interesting. Rich, I didn't know that he had kids to begin with, but Rich, I got to run. Thank you very much for the call. Terry in Chateau, Oklahoma. Hey, Terry, what's up?
Hi, Tom. First-time caller.
Thank you.
I don't know if you've ever heard of an investigative journalist by the name of Whitney Webb.
Not that I recall.
Okay. She made Glenn Beck even break from following Trump totally. She's done a deal with Epstein, public domain data. She's on YouTube. You can catch her clips. But she connects the dots with Russian mafia money to the public domain system, the Israeli intelligence, why the big journalists are not saying anything on the major news, why Clinton and the other Democrats, as well as some of the Republicans, aren't saying anything. They're other than just pushing the sex deal, but they're not looking at all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think you'd enjoy interviewing her and your listeners listening to her. You can catch some of her clips on YouTube.
Yeah.
But they just I think an Israeli intelligence officer under Netanyahu was arrested.
So
today
what's the bottom line that she's saying, Terry?
Okay, it looks like that both parties are compromised.
Both parties being who?
The major parties, Democrat, Republican, by mafia money and the Israeli intelligence. There's more than just having sex scandal stuff.
Yeah.
But if you catch her clip on YouTube, I really think you'd want to interview it.
I'll check it out. Terry, thanks for the call. And just for future reference, if you have suggestions for listeners or, for guests and things like that, just leave that information with Mateo. That really doesn't need to make it onto the air. We'll be right back. It's 2 minutes past the hour. Our daily song is now available on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Pandora, Tidal, Deezer, iHeartRadio, and a whole bunch of other platforms. Just look for songs by Louise and Thom Hartmann. Check it out. So back in 1933, when Franklin Roosevelt became president, we were in the depths of the Great Depression. He raised the top income tax rate on billionaires from 25% to 90%. The ultra-rich were screaming, and here's what he had to say.
A number of my friends who belong in these very high upper brackets have suggested to me on several occasions of late that if I am re-elected president, they will have to move to some other nation because of high taxes here. Now, I will miss them very much.
He just took it right to them, right? Now, what came out of that was the world's largest and fastest growing and first major middle class. We can do this again. We just have to raise taxes on rich people. It's pretty straightforward. There's a whole article about it over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
There was a time we had a deal. You work hard, the country'd feel a duty to the folks who paved the way. From factory lines to nurses' floors, we built this land, we fought their wars. But now they treat our lives like they don't pay. Grandma's counting pills and praying rent gets paid, while billionaires just float away in gold-stitched shades. This is the death of the social contract, signed in sweat, torn by billionaires packed. They raise the glass while the hospitals close, our elders fall and nobody knows. Is this the country we swore to defend, or the end of the dream, my friend?
25 minutes past the hour, picking up your calls here. Jim in Las Vegas. Hey, Jim, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, how are you doing today?
Good, what's up?
Well, I have a little beef to kind of take with you. A couple weeks ago, like, you've been putting out, like, the 4 things that they talked about getting rid of oligarchy. And a couple weeks ago, you said, revolution was, like, one of them, or like, what we called before Civil War. Mm-hmm. And you said a couple weeks ago, you said we really don't have someone to have a revolution against. And I really, I took offense to that. Not against you, but against just what you said. I'm a 12-year Army veteran. I'm a disabled veteran. I fought for my country. I did everything my country asked me to do. And I was disabled because of my duties that I did.
No, I get that, Jim, and forgive the interruption, but I only have 30 seconds left here. Are you saying that you would take up arms against the United States government?
Well, if it took that, yes, I would. And I think that...
And you think you could succeed?
Well, with what we're seeing now in all these cities of people being assaulted and beaten down, yes, I think revolution is on the horizon.
Interesting. I'm very skeptical of it. I'll be right up front with you, Jim, but, I may well be wrong. So, because you just never know how these things go. Jim, thanks for the call. Good to hear from you.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
27 minutes past the hour. Back with more of your calls on the other side of the break. Stay with us. Today we're reading from It's Even Worse Than You Think, What the Trump Administration is Doing to America by David K. Johnston. This is from page 61, the chapter titled Forgetting the Forgotten Man. In 2010, the U.S. Department of Labor created a website to honor workers who died on the job. Quote, more than 4,500 workers, lose their lives on the job every year. Below are the names of just a few who have died in recent months. OSHA's mission is to prevent workplace injuries, illnesses, and death, end quote.
That Occupational Safety and Health Administration webpage was intended to highlight and humanize workplace deaths, to ensure awareness of tragedies, especially those that could have been avoided, according to Jordan Barab, an Assistant Secretary of Labor during the Obama administration. Barab explained, without information like this, fatality statistics are just raw, sterile numbers. The purpose of adding names and circumstances was to impress people with the tragedy that workers and their families face day after day. In August 2017, Trump's Labor Department quietly removed the preamble and the names when it killed the web page. It also took down, without public announcement, the fatality inspection data for all years prior to 2017. Those were just two of many other Trump administration actions inimical to worker safety. Others included no longer posting press releases about deaths resulting from unsafe working conditions, delaying rules to reduce sickness and death from inhaling silica and beryllium at work, delaying rules to lower the risk of railroad engineers and truck drivers falling asleep at the switch or wheel because of untreated sleep apnea, and the appointment to the Supreme Court of a judge who held that a company had the right to fire a worker who chose not to freeze to death on the job. A reasonable person listening to Donald Trump's inaugural address would never have expected these and other actions, assuming he believed what Trump said. Trump declared, "The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no more. You came by the tens of millions to become part of a historic movement, the likes of which the world has never seen before. At the center of this movement is a crucial conviction that a nation exists to serve its citizens," end quote. Those men and women were forgotten again the following week. And it's not just workers whose interests were forgotten, not to mention who were put in danger. By deciding not to implement a rule to reduce the chances of truck drivers and train operators falling asleep at the wheel, Trump put at risk the lives of families driving along the highway, people riding on passenger trains, and many others. The White House called it President Trump's war on regulation. In his weekly radio address in early May, he declared that we've removed one job-killing regulation after another, and they're not pretty, and they're going. And believe me, we're just getting started on regulations. They're gone. Removal of data on workplace deaths, which averaged 13 per day, infuriated Jordan Barab, who was Obama's number 2 at OSHA. As a private citizen, Barab created a web page to keep track of the names of the dead and the reasons they were killed on the job. He called it, "OSHA won't tell you who died in the workplace, we will." After the election, Barab's concerns that the Trump administration would be bad for workers increased when he asked where the Trump beachhead team was and learned that none was coming. Each incoming administrator sends people to scope out federal agencies, learn who does what, and get a feel for the place in advance. Then the incoming administration sends its landing team, the people who will initially implement its policies for each agenda or at each agency. When no beachhead team came up, Barab figured it meant worker safety simply was not a priority for Trump. He hoped that was the worst of it, nothing more than apathy about worker safety. But when the landing team arrived, Barab realized trouble was coming for American workers, and it was not official apathy, but the start of assaults on workers' rights and safety. Barab said most of them had no idea they were going to labor and no interest in workers' issues either. What they did have was a mandate to delay, repeal, or weaken regulations that protected workers, as part of Trump's plan to eliminate, quote, any regulation that is outdated, unnecessary, bad for workers, or contrary to the national interest, end quote. The first sign came when Trump nominated Judge Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court. Gorsuch was an acolyte of Antonin Scalia, whose seat he would be taking. Like Scalia, he said statutes should be literally read, and if that made no sense, well, that was a problem for Congress. Also, it had a habit of consulting dictionaries, often following Scalia's practice of relying on the third, fourth, or even lesser definition of a word when it supported his jurisprudence. Trump's nomination alarmed unions. Jody Calamine, a communications worker of America lawyer, told Gorsuch's Senate confirmation hearing that Gorsuch, quote, is a threat to working people's health and safety, end quote. Calamine cited Gorsuch's dissent in the 2016 case to make his point. That dissent, he said, reveals an anti-worker bias and features the judicial activism that will ultimately put workers' lives at risk, end quote. Those are unusually strong words about a Supreme Court nominee, but a review of the case shows Gorsuch has little regard for human life at least when it comes to employers' power over their workers. He considers a rigid interpretation of the law more important. The case was about a law Congress passed giving workers the right to refuse dangerous tasks. Gorsuch said, no, you may not refuse. It's even worse than you think, by David K. Johnston. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. You know, we've all gotten so used to living in a country where people are trying to crowdfund, like, cancer research for children. St. Jude's is a wonderful charity, but we're the only developed country in the world that needs, where you have to go to people and beg for money in order to treat children with cancer. Or Shriners, I mean, another great charity, but shouldn't we all be funding children who are born with birth defects and problems like that? We're probably the only country in the world where you can sell your life insurance policy because Social Security doesn't cover your retirement. I mean, it's probably not happening anywhere else in the world. Or reverse mortgage your home because you can't afford it. I mean, this is crazy that we are living in a country where No Kid Hungry, a charity. You can read all about it. There's a whole op-ed I wrote about this over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled America's Sickest Reality Show, Crowdfunding Cancer Care While Billionaires Hoard Billions. Check it out.
Dear MAGA, you raised your fist so high, screaming justice as the tear gas filled the sky. You wore your cap, stood proud in that hall while your Messiah hid behind gold plates. He told you he'd save the kids in chains, but he flew first class to Epstein's planes. While you feared basements that don't exist, he was soaking in spaz with a teenage guest list. You stormed the Capitol for a man who knew damn well where those jet wheels ran. He said, protect the girls from evil's hand, then drank with the monster on his private land. You believed he'd end the child abuse, but he was toasting with the ones who cut them loose. He told you
past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here, Michael in Gainesville, Florida. Hey, Michael, what's on your mind today?
Yes, hi. You bring up so many just terrifying points. It's hard to know what to think or what to do. But, one thing is maybe you listen to the people who are causing this mess themselves. When Trump and Putin, two most powerful men, kind of got off their meeting, the first thing Trump said that he took from the meeting, which was so weird for him to say, was the importance of mail-in voting and how we need to get rid of it. And that was such a strange thing to say, we just move on past it because there's so many more meaty things, which you've already discussed in this show. But
and they have mail-in voting in Russia, by the way.
Well, and then I got
most
to think,
European
why
countries.
Yeah, and this is where it gets scary because I thought, why would he think that's so important? Because the minority voters who are the high emotional content, fear-based, but minority, in order for them to win in any contest, they have to create a barrier so only high motivation voters are able to secure a vote. That means making people go in person. And so Putin and his supercomputers and Elon, they all have run the simulations because it's war, keep in mind. There's other ways to fight war. And they realize that in order for Trump to win, and they've given him a handoff right there in front of us, and Trump has been bragging about it to us. And this is part of the psychology of befriending and trust and truthfulness that that Putin has built with Trump, that he shares that with Trump, and Trump immediately comes and says, look what my trusted person has shared with me. You need to trust him too. Look what he's trying to do for us. It's a psychology of manipulation that Putin is doing. And, you know, we see this, I hate to bring it up because it's a divergent topic, but the issue of Israel, oh my gosh, you know, Israel, what they're doing, we need to be truthful. And that is to be honest and say, to begin any negotiation, you don't begin the negotiation by saying the other guy has to just choke on the falsehood that Israel should be there in the first place.
Roll
they
over
should
and die.
Israel
Let's get back to the original topic here, Michael, the mail-in voting. First of all, the reason why Donald Trump wants to get rid of mail-in voting, number one, during the pandemic, Republicans weren't afraid of the virus. Democrats were. Democrats were heavily using mail-in voting. Republicans were not. So Trump has it in his head that only Democrats do mail-in voting. Number two, there are 5 states that are 100% mail-in voting. Oregon, Wisconsin, or Washington State, Utah, and 2 others. I don't recall which ones they are, but 4 of those 5 states are Democratic states. Only Utah, a Republican state, uses mail-in voting as, it's the only Republican state that does. So if you're going to do away with mail-in voting. Number 3, mail-in voting diminishes the impact of television advertising, because typically when people do mail-in voting, they do it at home on the kitchen table with a laptop or a computer, and they actually look up the candidates and look up the claims. And so if there have been lies and BS being promoted on television, those things get blown apart. And finally, mail-in voting encourages hourly workers to vote who can't take time off work to go vote during the day at the polling place, but they can sit around the kitchen table at 8 o'clock at night after dinner and fill out their ballots and put them in the mail the next day without having to lose a few hours out of their paycheck. And those hourly workers tend to be Democratic. So those are the reasons why why Trump wants to do away with mail-in voting.
Wow.
The danger of mail-in voting from our point of view is that the Republicans have in the 2024 election recruited 10,000 people to show up at polling places all across the country, or at the places where the votes are actually counted, and they allow a Democrat and a Republican to observe the opening of the envelopes and the counting of the mail-in votes. And if either one of those 2 people says, I don't believe that signature matches the signature on the registration card, at that point, then that voter is contacted and they have to come in and prove that they are who they are. And most people never do that. And so over 2 million votes were discarded because in largely Democratic areas, Republican vote judges claimed that the signatures didn't quite match. And signatures, of course, change over time, particularly with people over 50. But in generally speaking, signatures change over time. And
oh my gosh.
So those are all the reasons that Trump wants to do away with mail-in voting, Michael.
We need an action item. After you said all of that, we need a, rolling economic blockade, something, because it's terrifying.
Yeah. What we need is nationwide mail-in voting, because it's so much easier. I mean, I live in Oregon. We have mail-in voting. It is so convenient to be able to sit down with a laptop and look up the names of the judges and things. I used to just vote based on, well, that guy's got a nice name, or, particularly in the nonpartisan races. I mean, how do you know who to vote for drain commissioner or for, state Supreme Court or whatever? Mail-in voting actually enhances the knowledge of the voters. And that's something that Republicans don't like also. So, yeah, Michael, I got to move along. But thank you for the call. And thanks for pointing all that out. Greg in Oak Park, Illinois. Hey, Greg, what's up?
Yes, John, the commentator John Fugelsang could probably do this more authoritatively, but my call is to protest the use of the label Christian nationalist or Christian nationalism.
I always put the word Christian in quotation marks when I say that. When I write
as
that.
Conceding too much to the MAGA bigots.
Yeah.
I think it would be better. They would be better described as bigoted. This is bigoted nationalism. Christianity is in the service of the bigotry. If someone were to ask us to explain what the KKK was or is, we would never say that they were Protestant conservative cultural protesters. They were racist, anti-Catholic, anti-Semitic murderers, and we ought to clean that. This is, for me, this is a yet one of many infuriating examples of rhetorical sloppiness by the Trump critics, and we're distorting the nature of the opposition when we engage in this kind of thing. So
I get it, and also I would add that in my experience, the majority of these people, the Franklin Grahams, the Jerry Falwells, juniors of the world, who proclaim their Christianity, are not actually Christians. They are not following the teachings of Jesus. They're charlatans. They're hustlers. They're wealthy business people, and their businesses selling this thing that they call Christianity. But spot on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a helpful. This perhaps is a helpful imagery that if the MAGA train's engine is bigotry, the fuel is hate, and Christianity is the caboose.
Yeah, there you go. Greg, thanks for the call. It's 44 and a half minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a minute. Stay with us. Looks like maybe the meeting has begun. I'm not sure if this is B-roll or if it's live. We'll be right back. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's the place where we dare to ask, is Walmart a person? And we dare to say, no, the Republicans in the court got that one wrong, too. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Michelle in Kansas City, Missouri. Hey, Michelle, excuse me. What's on your mind today?
I want to talk about redistricting and gerrymandering and how you don't think it affects you personally. Let me give you a little story. Mm-hmm. I live in a neighborhood called Northeast in Kansas City, Missouri, 50,000 people. We had one state senator and one state rep. We are a strong, union-proud, working-class Democrat neighborhood. After 2000, Republicans got a couple little, advantage for us, and they redistrict. They cut my neighborhood in half. So now I have two state senators. Oh, and and they were a force because we had united force. Northeast needs this, Northeast, and then not only did they cut it in half, I have two state senators. One, I have no idea who this person is, and then they redistrict again in 2020. Now there are three state representatives. They went through and cut my neighborhood up into three districts. They cut my specific little neighborhood out, Pendleton Heights, and put me with north of the river, which that's the suburbs. I'm the city.
Right.
But so we have three representatives and two state senators for a neighborhood that used to be a strong Democratic bloc. So that's how your redistricting and gerrymandering works.
Exactly. Yeah. And they're all Republicans, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I will say no. I say two of the representatives are, I will say, Democratic. One is trans. Thank you, Lord. Mm-hmm. And the other, the senators. I have no, because it used to be. I worked for the state senator. I worked for the state rep for years. Mm-hmm. I knew everybody on one block of my neighborhood of 50,000 people because we worked that neighborhood. Now, there's no organization. It's so disorganized, and they have different priorities, not the priority of Northeast. Yeah. It's the priorities of their little district. Yeah. So they carved out my little neighborhood because guess what? We're more white and more rich than the rest of the neighborhood. So that's how your redistricting and gerrymandering works in America. Just letting you know, Tom, and letting the people know this will affect you personally.
Yeah, amen. Thank you, Michelle. Well said. Thank you so much. Carol in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Hey, Carol, what's up?
Hi, Tom.
Hey.
How are you?
Good.
Hey, I haven't called for a while. I've just been busy, but I've been a faithful listener.
Thank you.
I just wanted to let you know there's two things that are very important that are linked together. First off, there's a daily podcast, Daily Beast podcast. On that podcast, she's doing, I don't remember the lady, she's like the editor-in-chief of the Daily Beast. But anyway, she interviews Michael Wolff. Michael Wolff, you know, has done
Trump's
a
biographer,
couple of
yeah.
books. Yes, but also, oh gosh, Murdoch, who's the guy that runs the news, not Fox? Who's that guy? What's his name?
I don't know, but keep going along.
Murdoch. Well, anyway, couple books, Rupert Murdoch. Yeah. So he's done. Michael Wolff has done books on both of those people. He wanted to Epstein. Please hold on because it's really important. Okay.
Yeah.
On the Daily Beast, Michael Wolff reported that Epstein had called him and talked to him and told him specifically he had gone to meet with Putin.
Yeah, not surprised. Carol, thank you for the call. 10 minutes before the hour. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. Our podcast, The Hartmann Report, is absolutely free and available wherever fine podcasts are available. And the entire 3-hour podcast is available over at thomhartmann.com. So have you noticed that the Republicans are pretty much not talking about a constitutional convention anymore? They used to be gung-ho to rewrite the Constitution. You know, they wanted to put corporate personhood in there. They wanted to change it so that women can't vote. They wanted to do away with the election of senators, repeal the 17th Amendment, take us back to them being appointed by the states. They had all these weird, they wanted to outlaw labor unions, all these weird ideas, but they've stopped talking about it. I mean, they're still moving forward on it, but it's not. Project 2025, for example, you know, their ultimate talking document, does not have one single mention in it about a constitutional convention. Why would that be? Well, it's because the Supreme Court is doing their work for them. I mean, you know, just they have overturned Article 2. They've overturned the 1st, 4th, 9th, and 14th Amendments. They've overturned Article 1, Section 7. All the details of this whole thing are over at HartmannReport.com. You got to check it out.
Years gone since the last World War. We said never again, but look what's in store. The rich got their cuts, the poor got ignored. Now the wolves are back and they're scratching the door.
51 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. John in Puxatawney, Pennsylvania. Hey, John. What's up?
Hey, Tom. How are you? I called this morning. I wanted to sort of alert you, or not alert you, but tell you about an event that we have every year. Rural Democrats in Pennsylvania, we get together, and we call it Demstock.
Mm-hmm.
And we gather, I don't know, about 300 Democrats for a weekend in which we have an event that we collect money for local candidates. We have speakers come for a big dinner. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on, but you know we are fighting back. We have a group and an indivisible group that's protesting at the largest detention center in the Eastern Seaboard. That's in Clearfield County, right next to us. And we have at the dinner we had Anderson Clayton speak to us. And if you know Anderson, she's the chair of the North Carolina Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
And Brendan Boyle came, and then Malcolm Kenyatta was our keynote speaker.
Oh, very cool.
And yeah, he's and I know Malcolm personally. He's a fantastic individual.
Mm-hmm.
But he taught us to sort of bring up the old Edmund Pettus Bridge metaphor that, you know, in those days we fought for our freedoms, and his message, modern message, is that if we want to maintain our democracy, that we should all just get up on the bridge.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's sort of a good message. But
yeah.
I don't know. I thought that you might be interested in that. It's a cool event. We get been having it for about 7 years, and we get about 300 people to attend every year and have a good time.
Well, that's great, John. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Hopefully it'll inspire others.
Yeah, we'd like, we want everybody to, just be comfortable in their own skin, but we're fighting. I mean, I don't know how much good we're doing, but we are fighting. And I took your advice a long time ago and became a Democrat county chair for the Democratic
good on
Party.
you, John. Good on you.
I'm trying to do my part, however little it may be.
You just
but yeah,
never know
how
how some small action just echoes. It's the butterfly effect. In Brazil, causing a tornado in New York or whatever. I mean, you just never know, and it's so important that we all do whatever we can. And good on you, John. I'm so impressed. Thank you for calling and sharing that story. Gary in Baltimore, Maryland. Hey, Gary, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Great show. Everything I wanted to say is in your last two songs. Great.
Thank you.
What I'm interested in, I live just outside of Baltimore. We have Sinclair headquarters, and I'm trying to get a group together to go there and protest out front. So I'm getting all my neighbors together. And then also, when we get a chance to talk to Congress, I would use the guilt trip instead of, they always talk about, we only need 4 or 5 people to vote over. Forget about that. We want to talk to the people in Congress and say, do you want your kids and your grandkids to go down in history? Remember you sponsoring a dictator, or do you want them to listen to history and go down in history too? So we should go after them for their kids' sake, not for listening to. And
that applies to the climate change as well.
For everything, I mean, everything he's trying to change.
Democracy, social safety net, education, medicine,
And then also, you talk about your early conservative. One thing that you don't give enough credit to, I think, because I think it's the great awakening for liberalism, is, right after everyone's watching about Kennedy being shot, 3 months later than that, the Beatles hit America. And I think that began a lot of liberalism opening up, just having the Beatles come to America, and opens a lot of people's eyes to the changes.
Yeah. It was definitely a turning point in our culture. It was a very significant moment. Gary, thank you. Brilliant observations. Appreciate it. Ed in Chicago. Hey, Ed, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, hey, Tom. Well, quickly, you were talking to a lady earlier, and you were mentioning, you gave like 3 reasons why Trump adores Putin. And I agree with you. There was a combination of all of them. But my gut feeling from watching that press conference, when I looked at Trump, my gut feeling was he's looking at Putin like a 5-year-old looks at Santa Claus.
Yep.
It was disgusting.
Yep. Did you notice when they shook hands on the tarmac, Trump's hand was palm up and Putin's was palm down? Trump was completely submissive.
I was kind of far away because I mentioned. No, you were mentioning that.
They keep playing it on TV. I saw it again this morning. When they met on the red carpet.
Disgusting. Yeah, a red carpet for a war criminal. Yeah. But Mike, I have a question for you, and that is, why do you think that the majority of the Democratic Party is not rising up to meet the moment? I don't get it. I mean, we have a few, and they're growing, and I'm very grateful for them, like, Pritzker and others. But it seems to me that the majority of the Democratic Party, their silence is perplexing, to say the least.
I do not have an answer to that question, Ed. I'm sorry. I get it that there's some people who are just kind of keeping their head down and doing their job, but this many? I don't know. Ed, I just don't know. I attribute it to a lack of leadership on the part of Jeffries, Schumer, and the new chair of the DNC.
Corporate ideologues never cease blathering.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free, and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Book today is Midnight in Chernobyl, the untold story of the world's greatest nuclear disaster by Adam Higginbotham. This is from the prologue. Saturday, April 26, 1986, 4:16 p.m., Chernobyl Atomic Energy Station, Ukraine. Senior Lieutenant Alexander Logachev loved radiation the way other men love their wives. Tall and good-looking, 26 years old, with close-cropped dark hair and ice blue eyes, Logachev had joined the Soviet Army when he was still a boy. They had trained him well. The instructors from the military academy outside Moscow taught him with lethal poisons and unshielded radiation. He traveled to the testing grounds of Semipalatinsk in Kazakhstan and to the desolate East Urals trace, where the fallout from a clandestine radioactive accident still poisoned the landscape. Eventually, Logachev's training took him even to the remote and forbidden islands of Novaya Zemlya, high in the Arctic Circle, and ground zero for the detonation of the terrible Tsar Bomba, the largest thermonuclear device in history. Now, as the lead radiation reconnaissance officer of the 427th Red Banner Mechanized Regiment of the Kiev District Civil Defense Force, Logachev knew how to protect himself and his 3-man crew from nerve agents, biological weapons, gamma rays, and hot particles, by doing their work just as the textbooks dictated, by trusting his dosimetry equipment, and, when necessary, reaching for the nuclear, bacterial, and chemical warfare medical kits stored in the cockpit of their armored car. But he also believed that the best protection was psychological. These men who allowed themselves to fear radiation were most at risk. But those who came to love and appreciate its spectral presence, to understand its caprices, could endure even the most intense gamma bombardment and emerge as healthy as before. As he sped through the suburbs of Kiev that morning at the head of a column of more than 30 vehicles summoned to an emergency at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, Logachev had every reason to feel confident. The spring air blowing through the hatches of his armored scout car carried the smell of the trees and the freshly cut grass. His men, gathered on the parade ground just the night before for their monthly inspection, were drilled and ready. At his feet, a battery of radiological detection instruments, including a newly installed electronic device twice as sensitive as the old model, murmured softly, revealing nothing unusual in the atmosphere around them. But as they finally approached the plant later that morning, it became clear that something extraordinary had happened. The alarm on the radiation dosimeter first sounded as they passed the concrete signpost marking the perimeter of the power station grounds, and the lieutenant gave orders to stop the vehicle and log their findings. 51 roentgens per hour. If they waited here just 60 minutes, they would all absorb the maximum dose of radiation permitted Soviet troops during wartime. They drove on, following the line of high-voltage transmission towers that marched toward the horizon in the direction of the power plant. Their readings climbed still further before falling again. Then, as the armored car rumbled along the concrete bank of the station's cooling canal, the outline of the 4th unit of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant finally became visible, and Logachev and his crew gazed at it in silence. The roof of the 20-story building had been torn open, its other upper levels blackened and collapsed into heaps of rubble. They could see shattered panels of ferroconcrete, tumbled blocks of graphite, and here and there the glittering metal casings of fuel assemblies from the core of a nuclear reactor. A cloud of steam drifted from the wreckage into the sunlit sky. Yet they had orders to conduct a full reconnaissance of the plant. Their armored car crawled counterclockwise around the complex at 10 kilometers an hour. Sergeant Vlaskin called out the radiation readings from the new instruments, and Logashov scribbled them down on a map, hand-drawn on a sheet of parchment paper in ballpoint pen and colored marker. 1 rochin per hour, then 2, then 3. They turned left, and the figures began to rise quickly. 10, 30, 50, 100. 250 rochins an hour, the sergeant shouted, his eyes widening. Comrade Lieutenant, he began, and pointed at the radiometer. Logashev looked down at the digital readout and felt his scalp prickle with terror. 2,080 rochins an hour, an impossible number. Logashev struggled to remain calm and remember the textbook, to conquer his fear. But his training failed him, and the lieutenant heard himself screaming in panic at the driver, petrified that the vehicle would stall. Why are you going this way, you son of a bee? Are you out of your effing mind? If this thing dies, we'll all be corpses in 15 minutes. Part 1, Chapter 1, The Soviet Prometheus. At the slow beat of approaching rotor blades, black birds rose into the sky, scattering over the frozen meadows and the pearly knots of creeks and ponds lacing the Pripyat River basin. Far below, standing knee-deep in snow, his breath lingering in heavy clouds, Viktor Brukhanov awaited the arrival of the nomenklatura from Moscow. When the helicopter touched down, the delegation of ministers and Communist Party officials trudged together over the icy field. The savage cold gnawed at their heavy woolen coats and nipped beneath their tall fur hats. The head of the Ministry of Energy and Electrification of the USSR and senior party bosses from the Soviet Socialist Republic of Ukraine joined Brukhanov at the spot where their audacious new project was to begin. Just 34 years old, clever and ambitious, a dedicated party man, Brukhanov had come to Western Ukraine with orders to begin building what would become the greatest nuclear power station on Earth. Midnight at Chernobyl.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Third hour of our program. Interesting piece in the Irish Times today speculating about what is it that Putin has on Trump. What kind of compromise does he have? How is it that Putin holds Trump? I mean, Trump he's got Zelensky in the Oval Office, and he just said, I'm going to call Vladimir as soon as we get done with this meeting. I mean, it's like, you know, I'm going to report to my boss. What the hell's going on? The President of the United States is the Manchurian candidate. The President of the United States is a shill for a foreign adversary who has killed his political opposition, who imprisons people who speak out against him, who has ended the free press in his country, who has gutted the democracy that for a brief time existed in Russia, who has seized control of the media, who rigs elections, who runs one of the most sophisticated spying operations in the world. What does Putin have on Trump? Is it the Epstein material? Does Putin have videotapes of Trump having sex with underage girls, whether it's in Moscow or at Epstein's homes in Palm Springs or New York, right down the street in both cases from Donald Trump's homes? Best friends for 10 years? Is that what it is? I mean, Trump's sitting in the White House with Zelensky and all these people, and then he says, well, you know, whatever happens here, I got to call Vladimir and tell him about it. Really? Meanwhile, he's saying that Vladimir told him that voting machines cause elections to be corrupted. Well, they use, the mail-in ballots. He's also down on voting machines. They use both in Russia. They use mail-in ballots across Europe. Most of your European countries, or many of your European countries, certainly have mail-in ballots. Virtually all of them offer some mail-in ballots. But Trump says that, Vladimir told me this is a bad thing. This is how I lost the 2020 election. I didn't actually lose. This is how it was stolen from me. It was with mail-in ballots. Right. He says, we are now the only country in the world that uses mail-in voting. That's a lie. Trump said that. He said that on his Nazi-infested social media site. He says, all others gave it up because of the massive voter fraud encountered. That's a lie. As I mentioned earlier, Republicans don't like mail-in ballots for a variety of reasons. Number one, people who work hourly, who are paid hourly and can't take time off from work to go vote, they're more likely to vote by mail-in ballot. And, hourly workers are more likely to vote Democratic. They would love to have a union, for example, and decent pay and free health care and be able to send their kids to college. So you don't want those people voting. So you get rid of mail-in ballots. Number two, voters are more well educated about the issues and the candidates when they do mail-in ballots, because typically people sit down at the kitchen table or living room or whatever, and with their laptop or their computer, and they look up the candidates and they look up the issues. So they're well informed. Well, Republicans hate well-informed voters. They want people who believe slick little 60-second lies, slogans and things. Number three, people are and therefore television advertising has less impact on people. I mean, number four, during the pandemic, Democrats were far more likely to vote mail-in than Republicans, because Republicans were out there going, oh, the virus, I'm not afraid of it. Of course, Republicans literally died at twice the rate of Democrats in 2020 during the pandemic and 2021. Twice the rate. In fact, Republicans are still dying at a much higher rate than Democrats. Why? Because they believe this BS propaganda that Trump was promoting starting in April 11th of 2020 during the pandemic, when it was reported that it was mostly black and Hispanic people dying from the virus. And Trump was like, oh, it's not white people? Well, hey, let's get back to work. Nothing to worry about here. Don't need a mask. Yeah. Right. Germany has mail-in voting. South Korea has mail-in voting. I mean, Trump just lies. He says the Republican Party is going to fight like hell to bring honesty and integrity back to our elections. Our elections, by and large, have honesty and integrity. The Republicans are fighting like hell to prevent honesty, and they want to prevent you from voting, particularly if you're a woman who changed her name when she got married and didn't go to a court. The SAVE Act has passed the House of Representatives. It's sitting in the Senate, which says that if your birth certificate doesn't match your driver's license, you can't vote. And now you got Trump's tirade coming after Trump told Fox News' Sean Hannity on Friday, Vladimir Putin, smart guy, said you can't have an honest election with mail-in voting. Right. Incredible. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has come up with another brilliant new idea. This excludes Europe, the white people, but pretty much everybody else in the world. If you want to come to the United States, you have to pay $250 for a visa. I mean, he's already destroying the tourist trade, right? Vegas is empty. Well, it's not empty, but, tourism is way down. You look at the parts of the United States where snowbirds from Canada typically bought second homes, wealthy Canadians, places like Palm Springs, all up and down the Southern California coast, frankly. Florida, some parts of Texas, Arizona, New Mexico. And, people are trying to sell their houses. They're getting out of Dodge. We don't want to come to America anymore. And they're saying that the losses could be $11 billion, according to Tourism Economics Analysis seen by Forbes magazine. This fee, by the way, was in the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. It applies to all visitors traveling to the U.S. on non-immigrant visas, except for those countries in the visa waiver program, which is, as I said, Western Europe and Japan and South Korea and Taiwan. So here we are. These fees take effect in October. And the FIFA World Cup is next year, and the Summer Olympics are in 2028. And do you think people are going to come? People from Brazil have to pay the $250. People from India have to pay the $250. Just people from India, by the way, in 2022 generated $13 billion by visiting the United States. Will they come now? I have a feeling they're going to feel somewhat discouraged. I mean, it's sort of like saying, no, we don't want you here. Of course, again, these are all countries with brown and black people in them, or Asian people, as opposed to the Western European countries that are largely white people. They can come without having to pay the fee. Are you noticing a trend? I'll pick up your calls on the other side of the break. It's 14 and a half minutes past the hour. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, exposing the con in conservative.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Be right back with your calls. Stay tuned. And welcome back, Denise in Calumet, Michigan. Hey, Denise, what's up?
Hi, Tom. My question is kind of very personal in a way. My upbringing, I hung around with Vietnam vets. My uncle was in Korea fighting. My dad was in the military. My husband was in the military. Why now don't the military, if they swore an oath to defend the enemy from within, and Trump is the number one enemy from within, why are they listening to him? Why are they going? Why don't they just say no?
I think the biggest factor, Denise, was the end of the draft. You have a military that is made up of people who volunteered for military service. And so basically you've got two kinds of people in the military. One are the people who are there because it's the only economic opportunity available to them. And for them, it's a job that they're very, very grateful to have. And there's a lot of benefits beyond just the regular paycheck, you know, the GI Bill and retirement and pensions and all kinds of stuff. And then secondly, and perhaps more importantly, you've got people who just loved the idea of being GI Joe. They wanted to join the military. When you have a draft, you've got a military where, you know, as many as half of the people in the military really don't want to be there. They're not big fans of the hierarchy. They're not sir, yes, sir types. They're not desperate for the paycheck. And so they're more likely to question authority. They're more likely to fight back. They're more likely to say, no, hell no, I ain't going to do that if it's an illegal order. And, you know, when we ended the war in, I believe it was the 1970s, I'd have to go back and look, but it was after the Vietnam War, we ended the draft. And so we have an all-volunteer army, and all-volunteer armies are notorious for being hardcore right-wing.
That is so sad because they're not going to be heroes in the end.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that we should bring back the draft. I mean, Charlie Rangel, who fought in World War II in Italy, used to come on this program regularly back, 10, 15 years ago. He was one of our more regular guests. He's now, I don't know if he's passed away or if he's just like 100 years old, but he's not in the public eye anymore, the former congressman from Harlem. And and he was so outspoken about this, and I just loved it. I agree with him. I think we need to bring back the draft. I don't think that everybody should be forced into the military. People should be given a choice, 1 year in the military or 1 year of public service, working for a nonprofit, a hospital, a school, a community for abused kids, whatever, something like that. Like Germany did when I lived there in the 80s. I don't know if they're still doing it, but I'm a big believer that it's a rite of passage for young people. I mean, this is something most cultures and societies have these transitional moments, confirmation in Catholicism, bar mitzvah and bet mitzvah in Judaism. I don't know what it is in Islam or in Hinduism, but I guarantee that they're there. These are the transitions from childhood to adulthood. And we lack those by and large in our society. We don't have a secular transition anymore. Used to be the draft. My dad joined actually right out of high school, but he would have been drafted had he not joined at the end, because it was during World War II. And, I think having a draft is actually a good thing. As long as there's a healthy public service option that doesn't require military service. Denise, thank you for the call. Great question. Brilliant question. Thank you. It's 18 minutes, almost 19 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with you in 1 minute. Stay with us. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. A lot of people wonder, where did this whole right-wing movement to basically gut our freedoms and end DEI and all this other, where did this all begin? It all started back in 1951 with a book called The Conservative Mind, From Burke to Eliot by Russell Kirk. And he argued that if the middle class ever got too big, you'd see young people and women and racial minorities all get up on their hind feet and start protesting and basically screwing up America. And in the 50s, even Republicans thought he was nuts. But then the 60s happened and all those protests, and suddenly Republicans thought, yeah, he's right. We've got to destroy the middle class, or at least cut it back. And that was Reagan's mandate when he came into office in 1981. There's a whole article about this. You can read all the details. It's titled The GOP's 60-Year Conspiracy to Kill Our Democracy. None dare call it treason, but I will. Over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
The grip tightens. Can you feel the change? They're tightening their hold, pushing us to the edge of rage. Every law they break, every truth they steal, we stand on the edge, and it's too real. The grip tightens, it's cutting through the night. Can we rise, or will we lose this fight? They silence our voices, crush our dreams. The grip tightens, ripping at the seams.
21 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Bill in Sun City, Arizona. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. You often speak of morbid wealth.
Mm-hmm.
What becomes of money when morbid wealth happens?
It ceases to circulate, generally speaking.
It becomes constipated.
Good way of saying it, Bill. Yeah.
All right. So I'd say that we ease constipation by enacting a minimum income act.
Well, Massachusetts has done a wealth tax, and it's raised $2.5 billion this year, which is, by the way, $2 billion more than they were expecting. They've got a 4% tax on wealth over $1 billion, I think it is.
But by my reckoning, it's the number one reason we hear the words, "Oh, we can't afford that."
Mm-hmm.
There isn't anything we can't afford. We're a money-making machine, humanity.
Oh, yeah.
It's what we do.
We just have to have billionaires pay their fair share of taxes.
Exactly.
And they haven't since 1982.
And then we could do so much by we spoke before about how people of lower incomes, they spend the lion's share of their time and effort just on sustenance, just to acquire the amount of money it takes for basic sustenance, to eat, to drink, to sleep, to do things that the people that have great wealth take for granted.
Yeah, almost 2/3 of Americans live paycheck to paycheck.
And 2/3 of the world eats hand to mouth.
Yep.
They don't use forks. But they're not aware of it. You know, there's no awareness. And we have to become aware. We have to have a discussion and rethink money.
Yeah.
Money has to be rethought. If it becomes constipated, well, no good comes of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and that's just it. And that is just it. No good comes of it. Why do we do things that no good comes of it?
Well, we're doing it because the Supreme Court legalized political bribery, and so the very rich people take a very tiny slice of their wealth and they share it with politicians, and those politicians write the laws that they want. It's that simple. But Bill, you raised a great point, and what a super metaphor. Thank you for the call. Tim in Chico, California. Hey, Tim, what's on your mind today?
Greetings from Congressman Doug LaMalfa's backyard.
Oh, one who may well be gerrymandered out of business.
One would hope. Not that I support gerrymandering in general, but under the circumstances, yes. So when Doug ran, he ran signs that said the motto was, "He's one of us." So I would think that means he's othering.
What does that mean? He's a white male?
Or farmer, or I don't know.
Yeah.
So Doug is he grows rice and wheat, and he's a son of a rich man. What do you call that, a nepo baby? Yeah, his father is Milton LaMalfa, and according to the Environmental Working Group, his family over the years since 1995, they tracked it back, has received $5.5 million in
subsidies,
commodity subsidies for rice and wheat.
Yeah.
But he wants to help the people on welfare. What is it? If you throw a man a life preserver, they'll lose their will to swim.
Yeah. Yeah, the old
so
joke that Rush Limbaugh used to tell was, what do you do when a man is down? You kick him, otherwise he won't get up.
Yeah, so that's Doug. And the other thing I wanted to mention is he's militia adjacent up in Shasta County, which is in his district. There's a large militia movement. They've taken over the County Board of Supervisors, and they spent public money in of the county up there to travel on county business to go to a seminar by my pillow guy. And so
Mike Lindell, yeah.
That's the kind of people Doug hangs out with. So I just wanted to share with you that. And every Republican congressman in the last 40 years has won by the same percentage, somewhere like 18, 20% over some very good Democrats have ran against Doug.
Because how heavily gerrymandered the area is, or just how heavily Republican it is?
It really is. Once you get outside of the university area, it's pretty red.
Yeah, I get it. Well, Tim, thanks for the geography lesson and the history lesson. That's fascinating stuff. Tim, I appreciate it. 27 minutes past the hour. I'll pick up more of your calls on the other side of the break. Stay with us. It's the Thom Hartmann Program. Speaking the truth, J.D. Vance would really rather you didn't know all about it.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Water Cooler Wars. I'll be right back with your call.
Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Code Red by E.J. Dionne Jr. It's how progressives and moderates can unite to save our country. This is from the introduction, titled The Opportunity We Dare Not Miss. Will progressives and moderates feud while America burns? Or will these natural allies take advantage of a historic opportunity to strengthen American democracy and defeat an increasingly radical form of conservatism? The choice in our politics is just that stark. This book is offered in a spirit of hope, but with a sense of alarm. My hope is inspired by the broad and principled opposition that Donald Trump's presidency called forth. It is a movement that can and should be the driving force in our politics long after Trump is gone. His abuses of office, his divisiveness, his bigotry, his autocratic habits, and his utter lack of seriousness about the responsibilities of the presidency drew millions of previously disengaged citizens to the public square and the ballot box. The danger he represented inspired young Americans to participate in our public life at unprecedented levels. Tens of thousands of Americans, especially women, have gathered in libraries, diners, and church basements to share wisdom, to organize, and in many cases to run for office themselves. These newly engaged citizens have created an opportunity to build a broad alliance for practical and visionary government, as promising as anything since the Great Depression gave Franklin Roosevelt the chance to build the New Deal coalition. To seize this opening, progressives and moderates must realize that they are allies who have more in common than they sometimes wish to admit. They share a commitment to what public life can achieve and the hope that government can be decent again. They reject the appeals to racism that have been Trump's calling card and the divisiveness at the heart of his electoral strategy. Together, they long for a politics focused on freedom, fairness, and the future. This new politics would be rooted in the economic justice that has always been the left's driving goal, and in the problem-solving approach to government that moderates have long championed. It's true that these camps often battle over whether the nation should seek restoration or transformation in the years after Trump. In fact, our country needs both. To restore the democratic norms we have always valued, we must begin to heal the social and economic wounds that led to Trump's presidency in the first place. Yet there is resistance to common ground among progressives and moderates alike. They often mistrust each other's motives, battle fiercely over tactics, argue over how much change our country needs, and squabble over whether specific policy ideas go too far or not far enough. The moderate says, hey, progressive, you think that if you just lay out the boldest and most ambitious approach to any given problem, the people will rally to your side. Really? For one thing, people may like your objective, but think you're changing things way more than we have to. And we can battle to the death over, say, a Democratic Party platform plank or the first draft of a bill. But without the hard negotiating and compromising that legislative politics requires, a bold idea will remain just a platform plank. That really doesn't do anyone any good. You subject everyone to so many litmus tests that we might as well be in chemistry class. And God save us from your abuse on Twitter if we disagree with you. You lefties have no idea how to win elections outside of Berkeley or Brooklyn, and some of your ideas are so sweeping that they'll scare potential voters away. At this point, the moderate is likely to wield the sturdy old punchline, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. But hold on, says the progressive. You moderates spend so much time negotiating with yourselves that you compromise away goals and priorities before the real battle even begins. Your ideas get so soggy and complicated that they mobilize no one and mostly put people to sleep. Better to have the courage of your convictions, lay out your hopes plainly and passionately, and inspire voters to join in. Besides, you middle-of-the-roaders were so petrified of Ronald Reagan and the right wing that you caved into the Gipper's economic ideas, let inequality run wild, and gave us a racist and grossly unfair criminal justice system. The extremists have pulled the political center so far right that the only way back to sanity is to show our fellow citizens what a real progressive program looks like. At the risk of sounding like a perhaps unwelcome counselor attempting to ease a family quarrel, I would plead with moderates and progressives to listen to each other carefully. If the events since 2016 do not teach moderates and progressives that they must find ways of working together, nothing will. If they fail to heed each other's advice and take each other's concerns seriously, they will surrender the political system to an increasingly undemocratic right with no interest in any of their shared goals, priorities, and commitments. Moderates are right about the complexity of getting things done in a democracy. Even when the boldest ideas have prevailed, they did so because complex coalitions were built. Important, and it should be said often legitimate interests were accommodated, and some lesser goals were left by the wayside to be fought for another day. Moderates are also right that democracy requires persuading those who are open to change but worry about how this or that reform might work in practice or affect them personally. Think losing their private health insurance. Disdaining as sellouts, those who raise inconvenient questions or express qualms is not the way to build a majority for reform. Moderates are also right that Americans in large number are tired of politics that involves more yelling than dialogue, more demonizing than understanding. But progressives are right to say that for the last 3 decades, moderates have spent too much time negotiating with themselves. Consider all the effort Democrats put into wooing Republicans by responding to their proposals to amend Obamacare. The book Code Red by E.J. Dionne Jr. Our daily song is now available on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Pandora, Tidal, Deezer, iHeartRadio, and a whole bunch of other platforms. Just look for songs by Louise and Thom Hartmann. Check it out. Human beings have a couple of unique characteristics. The first is that we can be very tender and loving and concerned and caring toward people we perceive as being our group, us. We can also be extraordinarily violent against people that we consider to be them, if we think of them or this other as a threat. Probably the classic example of this is Adolf Hitler convincing Germans that, Jews were a threat to them and good Germans going along with the Holocaust. Well, this othering is built into our DNA. This is, ancient stuff. And the Republican Party, since the time of Nixon, when he started, picking up the white racist vote after Democrats laid it down in the 60s, the Republicans have been using this to try to other minorities in America as a political strategy. And this is really deadly stuff. There's a whole op-ed about it over at HartmannReport.com. Is othering human nature's deadliest instinct? Check it out.
Down the golden escalator man rode in, spoke of walls of fear, of who's to win. With every promise came a darker dream, turning empathy to rubble in his cruelty machine. This is Trump's cruelty machine, a grinding gear of hate unseen. Families shattered, futures torn apart, cold steel tearing hope from the heart.
36 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Mike in Somerville, South Carolina. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Hi, Tom. The other night I was watching MSNBC, and they said that Ralph Norman had said that he wanted to get rid of Clyburn, district him out, and that's the only Democrat in the House of Representatives from South Carolina. I don't know how they could get rid of him, too.
They could gerrymander him out. Is Ralph Norman the governor?
No. He's another congressperson.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. In fact, Clyburn was on, and he said that the governor would never do that, because he and the governor are friends.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mike, I'm not a follower of South Carolina politics, at least at that granular a level, so I can't speak to it. But I think Jim Clyburn's probably pretty safe, even if they were to gerrymander, although, some gerrymanders will, just push it to the point where there's no way a Democrat can win, but we'll have to just wait and see. There's a bunch of red states that could extend or amplify their gerrymanders, and it could be a real bad thing for Democrats. Mike, thanks for the call. Daniel in Bakersfield, California. Hey, Daniel, what's on your mind today? Thanks for listening to Sirius XM. Daniel? Listening to Sirius XM in Bakerfield, California? You got to listen to your phone, not your radio, because there is a little time delay. Going once, going twice. Michael in Bronx, New York. Hey, Michael, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I had to call you because you were mentioning about Trump and company trying to kill voting by mail.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been in the works for like the past 5 years.
Oh, try the last 20 years.
Well, yeah, but see, let me give you
That's how long we've had mail-in voting here in Oregon, and they've been trying to get rid of it all the time.
But see, let me explain to you what the situation is. I am a New York State government employee. I work at another agency right now, which I will not disclose. But I did work for the Department of Motor Vehicles. And, of course, they handled driver's licenses and non-driver's IDs.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And it was to register to vote, you need a valid ID. But what has happened so often is when the customer either applies for a New York ID or gets a driver's license first time or is renewing, they're given a temporary, for the processing. And about 2 weeks, they should receive their photo cards, the photo IDs in the mail, be it a non-driver ID or the driver's license or even a learner's permit. Mm-hmm. All three serve as legitimate, official New York State IDs.
Right.
A lot of times, customers have not been receiving their documents in the mail. And a lot of times, they have to cough up as much as $12 or $13 to pay for the replacement. Now, why am I saying this? Is because the current Postmaster General, Louis DeJoya, has been on board ever since Trump 1.0. And we already know that they have concocted a plot to try to rig the 2020 election to stop voting by mail, and they sabotage the entire mail system.
Right. They destroyed over $100 million sorting machines.
Right. But see, here's the part that nobody knows, is that the Postmaster General is one cabinet position that the sitting president, whoever they may be, do not have the power to arbitrarily replace.
Right. It's not a cabinet position, by the way, Michael. It's just he's just an agency head. He's not a member of the cabinet.
Well, the thing is that he stayed on board while Biden was in office,
right.
And then you wonder how the hell is it that Trump got back into office to begin with. But nonetheless, there has been a pattern here of people not getting their items from Albany, from the state capital. Mm. Now, I don't know if this has been an effect of other states, especially states governed by Democrats, but this is a serious ongoing issue here, and it hasn't stopped. I even had to tell customers that if they had to renew their registration, don't do it by mail, don't do it online. Make an appointment, go to the office, and do the renewal there, because at least they won't get a temporary document. They get a full document, which includes the registration receipt and the new window sticker right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it comes to the photo cards, the photo documents, you just have to hope and pray that you have good, diligent postal workers that are delivering, and not those on the side of MAGA, which are tossing such mails. They know what documents, just by the feel of it, has a photo card in there.
That's interesting. So you think that the postal workers or the post office in general is out to get wannabe voters in New York? That's amazing. Michael, I have no evidence to back that up. I can't validate your claim, but I'll take it very seriously. You usually bring good stuff to the show.
Someone that worked there and had a lot of complaints from customers saying the same thing, they never received it. What happens from point A in Albany and their place of residence, which is point B, only God knows, and even the postal workers know what happened.
Yeah, got it. Michael, thank you. Mike in Gainesville, Virginia. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Yeah, Trump tax, national coffee protest movement. I have a winning Democratic strategy that I really need to host on Progress to support this idea. I want to start a national coffee protest movement against Trump's 50% import sales tax on Brazilian coffee. Everyone needs to put that message on a sign and go to your local coffee shop. That way you can inform all coffee drinkers who do not watch or listen to the national media why we're having this protest and encourage them to join. Make it clear that all price increases in coffee is because of Trump's tax.
Right.
This is pro-coffee business, not a boycott.
Any idea, Mike,
Coffee.
what percentage of American coffee imports are from Brazil?
30%.
Seriously? Wow, that's substantial.
That's-
So if we've got a
That's
50%
what they
tariff
said.
on that, you're looking at a
Yeah, I know.
significant increase in coffee prices in the U.S.
And and also that will influence all the other, producers too, because they'll be able to raise their prices because if there's a 30% tax.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tom, you talked about Chernobyl. Do you want to know the real story?
Sure.
Okay. It was a cover-up by the Soviet Union on the design of the reactor.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to make sure the U.S. didn't know that these were extremely vulnerable reactors, so they never told their operators what were the real operating parameters. So when they did the test, they brought it down too rapidly because they basically kept the power up. They were supposed to do a test to see how low they could get and still have the ability to run the emergency systems.
Mm-hmm.
So when they basically when they did this test, they brought it down too rapidly, and then of course they basically got an implosion instead.
Right. That's interesting. I flew through that cloud on my birthday, May 7, 1986, flying into Germany. We moved to Germany the following month in June, and everywhere we went, there was Chernobyl radiation. I used to carry a Geiger counter in the store. The milk would trip it, the mushrooms would trip it. Some of the beef, some of the we didn't eat meat, but you could walk by the counter and it would set off the Geiger counters. It was a wild time. I'm amazed I'm still around. Mike, thanks for the call. That Chernobyl was we flew into Frankfurt and the city was deserted because it was raining and it was just radioactivity coming out of the sky.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
I showed up at the hotel. I had a wet raincoat on. The concierge or the guy at the front desk said, "Let me take your raincoat and wash it. It's covered in radiation." We'll be right back with more of your calls. And welcome back. Picking up your calls here. And let's see, Bill in Caledonia, Illinois. Hey, Bill, thanks for watching us on YouTube. What's up?
Hey, Tom, I'm kind of shocked that Putin started bringing up the church in Alaska. And it was, to me, it was like he was putting out a call to the religious, factions in this country.
No, he was responding to his own on Russian television for the last couple of weeks. They've been talking about how in 1867, when the Russians sold Alaska to the United States, they got ripped off, and it wasn't a legal sale. And Russia still belongs Alaska still belongs to Russia, and that there are still, and Putin pointed this out in his remarks, there are still people who go to the Russian Orthodox Church in Alaska, old Russians. And so that was all for domestic consumption in Russia.
Yeah, I understand what the point he was, point he wanted to do, but after this is Money, Lies, and God, Catherine Stewart's book about how entrenched he has been, since the early 2000s.
He being
Putin.
Okay.
Supporting, anti-abortion, pro-life, and how the money gets distributed. And then, of course, you got layers and layers of these so-called charities.
Yeah, he was also a big supporter of the NRA early on.
Yeah. Yeah, and but by bringing up the church there, I understand that, but by reading the book and listening to what he's saying, he's more or less dog whistling these people, saying, "Hey, you know, we support you, we support that," and he's getting us across on
No, I agree, and I think that it wouldn't surprise me to see Putin start making a serious effort to try to get back Alaska, or at least pieces of it. I mean, it ain't going to happen, obviously. We now have, defense operations there and everything else, but anything's possible. Bill, thanks for the call. Jerry in Yuma, Arizona. Hey, Jerry, what's on your mind?
Hey, good morning, Tom. I just saw a clip a little bit ago on YouTube there about, I guess it was an American captured tank in Ukraine where they're flying the U.S. flag alongside the Russian flag.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, that should completely disgust every veteran that ever fought for democracy in their life.
I agree.
I mean, if that,
and now Trump in the White House is continuing to defend Putin, by the way.
It's enough to make you sick. I already know. It's just,
So what do you think Putin's got on Trump? Is it that Trump wants to join the dictator club?
We already know he's a dictator or wannabe dictator or a mob boss or something. But a lot of things have come up about the Epstein thing and all that stuff. I think he took those to Mar-a-Lago with him when he left the White House. The first time. That's why they didn't have anything to get on him.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I doubt that we'll ever know. As long as Donald Trump's alive, I doubt we'll ever know. I have a feeling once it passes away, the dam is going to break. Jerry, I got to run. Thanks for the call. Good thoughts. Appreciate it. It's 10 minutes before the hour. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds. We'll continue picking up your calls. Stay tuned. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So what do we call the really, really mind-bogglingly rich? At the founding of the Republic, they were referred to as speculators or moneyed interest or aristocrats. In the years leading up to the Civil War, we called them the cotton lords and the plantation aristocracy. In the late 19th century, they were the robber barons. In the 1930s, FDR called them the economic royalists. But since the Reagan Revolution, we've just called them billionaires. And now, some of them want to call themselves tech bros. Like, that's kind of a good thing, like tech is positive and bros, like Mark Zuckerberg saying we need more masculine energy in American business culture. So we need a new phrase. I would like to suggest the morbidly rich. Morbidly suggests unhealthy. And the vast riches that some of these people have is unhealthy to our democracy, particularly since 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court said that morbidly rich people can buy politicians. And it's unhealthy for them, too. So morbidly rich. There's an op-ed over at HartmannReport.com all about it. Check it out. Welcome back. 51 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Paul in Henderson, Nevada. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Hang on one second. Getting you off my earbuds. Okay. Can you hear me?
I do. What's up?
Tom? Hey, I was going to tell you, this whole thing about Las Vegas being down for, visitation. Mm-hmm. There's a lot going on here. It's like a microcosm of the economy. I mean, we are number one in foreclosures now. Okay. And the thing about Las Vegas resorts and stuff being down, in the middle of the week, it's dead. So unless you have the people with money. So the people that have money are coming. But the people that would take it like what I'm saying, like middle class, upper, lower class, that would normally come here, they're not coming.
Right. They're vacationing at home.
Yeah, the less expensive hotels like Circus and Excalibur and, the ones that are lower priced than the other ones, they're empty. So it's a microcosm. It's it's wage, income inequality in practice right there.
Do you think that this is a leading indicator of a national recession, Paul? Sure seems like it to me.
And I think so too, because it's disposable income they don't have it.
Yeah, yeah, I
and
got it.
And then, I could tell you, there's another thing that I know we don't have time to discuss it, but there is another crisis coming to Las Vegas, and it's going to be they're going to have to bail out casinos because all the big mega corporations that own most of the buildings on the Strip, they sold the land out from underneath them. So it's kind of like they got to pay that first. So when their income, they're going to have to file bankruptcy and all kinds of stuff. So there's some. You can see it, but nobody's talking about it.
That's interesting.
Unless you're here.
Well, Paul, thank you for the report from Nevada. I appreciate it. That's fascinating. You're validating the news reports I'm seeing. Thank you. Paul in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today?
Well, I wanted to ask you about, and not that it matters, but the SAVE Act seems unconstitutional. I know that.
The what back?
The SAVE Act.
Oh, the SAVE Act. I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, I know that being unconstitutional is just a minor technicality these days, but
correct.
The Constitution prescribes that the states will run their elections.
Mm-hmm.
And, okay, so for the federal government to say that the name on the birth certificate has to match the name on the driver's license, well, the state issues both the birth certificate and the driver's license, and they're not necessarily standardized. I mean, states they're different documents, and they belong to the states. Those documents belong to the states or the federal government.
If you're arguing, Paul, that the SAVE Act, being federal legislation, cannot interfere with the way the states run the elections, how is it that the National Voter Registration Act of 1993 or 94, which imposes some significant, it's called the motor voter law. It requires people to be able to register to vote, for example, when they get the driver's license. How is that not a similar interference?
Well, I think that it's protecting the amendments, the voting rights amendment. And by that I mean the right to vote if you're 18, the right to vote if you're a woman.
Right.
Okay, but at any rate, here's my other point. This would only apply to voting for your representative in the House and your U.S. senators. Because technically, voting for president in the states is not a federal election. It's a straw poll. The federal election is the electors. When they vote, go to the state capitals in December.
Right. Good point.
Because if you look at Article, I know you've read it, Article 2, Section 1, Paragraph 2, each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors. It could be anything. We could have a beauty contest and let the winner decide who the electors are. So we've only been really voting for president. All the states have been voting for president, popular vote for president, since 1880. James Garfield was the first president in which all the states appointed electors based on the popular vote in the states. And so you can let school kids vote for president. And that's the way the legislature determines how to vote for president.
Excellent.
How to appoint
Excellent point. Paul, thanks for the call. Always good to hear from you. I appreciate it. And thanks for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us. That includes you. So get out there, get active, tag your it. Have a great afternoon. Be good to yourself and the folks around you. Stay safe. I'll catch up with you.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air. So you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.